please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Quantrell. Thank you. Next is resolution.
Thank you. There it is. Resolution, whereas Gloria Reyes, Board of Education President for Madison Metropolitan School District, has generously served on the board since 2018, one of these years as a board member and two as the president. Whereas Gloria Reyes's leadership has served as a genuine district collaborator and partner, advocating for equitable practices and diversity and inclusion policies and programs that better serve students, families, and staff of color. Whereas Gloria's commitment to overseeing and implementing the intersectional, safe, and welcoming schools approach, which supports the academic and social emotional growth of our students, has been unwavering. Whereas Gloria's steadfast leadership was also instrumental in the passage of the historic 2020 referendum, which will have a profound legacy on the Madison community for future generations by improving and creating equitable learning environments. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education recognizes and thanks Gloria Reyes for her inspiring leadership, unique contributions, and true dedication to MMSD schools. Her work will continue to leave a lasting positive impact in our schools, for our students, our families, and the community. Be it further resolved that this statement be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the regular meeting of March 22nd, 2021. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you. Thank you, Ollie, for reading that resolution, and thank you, everyone. I want to thank the school board members who I have served with over my term. It has been amazing to work with each and every one of you. We've been through some challenging times together, and we were able to overcome the many challenges that have faced us. And we've done it with just so much compassion, resiliency, and it's just been an honor to serve with each and every one of you. I am so honored that I was able to be a part of hiring Dr. Jenkins, who I'm so confident in his leadership in moving our district forward. It has been a pleasure to work with all leadership team and administration. They work hard every day. I've seen it firsthand. And our staff, our teachers who work hard every day to ensure that they are providing safe spaces and learning opportunities for our children. And finally, just want to thank the voters who came out in 2018, who came out to support me. It was an amazing moment for me, and appreciate the confidence of this community and that they had in me in leading this school district. And also to each and every one of you who have really stood behind me and supported my leadership, trusted me to make some really hard and difficult decisions. Finally, Barb Osborne, who's behind the scenes, who really helped transition me into the board and who has helped me significantly along the way. So it's been a pleasure serving this community in this capacity. And I look forward to all the great things that you all will accomplish. All right, let's move on. Written registrations, we have. There were 25 written statements submitted for this meeting. Please see the summary below. We have 13 in support of equitable fundraising and district allocated resources district-wide. 2 in support of the proposed expansion of the plan for the new pool at West High School. We have 8 opposed to the proposed changes to the employee handbook related to the surplus and layoff language, and 3 in support of the proposed recommended changes to the employee handbook. And do we have any public appearances?
First one. Brown. Brenda, whenever you're ready. Pardon me? Yes.
Are we supposed to be able to see?
Yeah, I'll give that in a second.
Okay.
Brenda? We're ready for your public appearance, Brenda. Whenever you're ready, you can turn on your video and your mic, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brenda Brown, and I am a longtime member of the City of Madison and a mother of 5 children that attended all over the academic environment institutions here in Madison at all age levels. I'm wanting to recommend Darlene Hancock for the renaming of Madison Memorial High School. And candidly, I just got the information 30 minutes ago, so I'm not as organized as I would like. I also understood that there may be a possibility of submitting the nomination in writing. Otherwise, I would just speak off the top of my head, which may not be the most effective. But what are the possibilities?
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Okay, Brenda, tonight marks the start of the 30-day timeline for us to ask for written submissions of proposals. Everything will be on the website tomorrow. Everything, including the form, where to do it, how to do it, and the criteria. So we'll have another month to get all the proposals gathered.
All right. Did you want me at all to speak at all why I want to nominate her in brief form, or just get the form off the line and get that completed?
Yeah, you can go ahead and just submit it. That would be great.
All right. So then I'm done here tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me, and I'll look for the form. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Second speaker is Brenda Haskett. Brenda, we're ready whenever you want to open your video and your camera and your audio. Go ahead. Brenda, are you working on your video? The audio, if you're ready. Or do you want to try?
Hi, can you hear us? Hello?
Brenda Haskins?
I'm here.
Good, thank you. Okay, can you turn on your video?
Tells me you've stopped it. So if you want to turn it on, you can turn it on. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, you can go ahead and start.
Thank you. Hello, Dr. Jenkins and the Board of Education members. My name is Brenda Haskins. I'm an East graduate, mom of La Follette High School grad and La Follette High School current student. And while all of us parents in the city of Madison want the best for our kids, and I understand the desires of the parents at Weston Memorial to have increased funding for their students, this is about fairness. And I'm speaking in opposition to West's new proposal or additional proposal for extra fundraising. In Kelly Ruppel's memo to the board today, it notes that projects that bring in millions of dollars to one or two schools in one geographic side of the district may not be in alignment with the donation policy or equity vision of our district. May not, I think you can be a little stronger than that. Definitely not. And yes, East got $10 million of construction for a theater and field house, and that's fantastic because as this memo states, East's a low-income school in a low-income neighborhood. So is La Follette, and La Follette kids are deserving of more. The board has set aside $5 million, but that's going to be shared by 3 schools. That's not going to La Follette. And with the tens of millions that are going to West and Memorial, something less than $5 million thrown at La Follette is really peanuts. Last month, a bunch of La Follette parents asked for an audit, among other things, of courses offered at the 4 high schools, and we haven't received those yet. And I want to know when we can expect it. The memo from Kelly goes on to say that the board's educational equity policy defines equity as the intentional distribution of district resources among schools, students, and staff based on what each needs to achieve universal goals. Assuming those goals are reading, writing, and arithmetic, our kids want that and need that as well as AP classes, theater, and athletics. Title I funds for math and reading end after 8th grade. How many 9th graders are grade ready at each of the schools? I'll bet there's a lot more at La Follette that are not grade ready. How about intentionally throwing a reading specialist or math specialist at La Follette and improving those feeder schools to catch the discrepancies in math and reading scores sooner? And how about doing that without taking away ability for our students to also have AP classes? I really want to talk about fees and another area where the board can be intentionally distributing fees. Waiving fees is an easy place, right? Two-thirds of La Follette kids are free or reduced lunch. When those fees are waived, the district should intentionally distribute money to make up for those loss. La Follette should receive those fees that we're not getting from the parents of kids from the district. When fees for art classes and athletics classes are waived year after year after year, our programs suffer. The district should intentionally distribute those waived resources back to La Follette so the burden to supply program funds doesn't fall on the families of only 1/3 of our students. We are a low-income school. That's why we need attention just the way East needed attention. And the reason we can't fundraise ourselves is because our fundraising dollars go for food and other supports. that our kids need. This board is not responsible for the inequities that currently exist. I'm a lifelong Madison resident. I'm a lifelong East Side resident. I get that. But this board, by continuing to approve millions for 2 West Side schools and throwing peanuts at La Follette, has to accept responsibility for growing the inequity intentionally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our speaker is.
Carrie, can you hear us?
Is that me? I'm here.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, get started.
Sorry, I have to turn up my volume. I hear myself, but not you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. How are you all? Thank you for taking the time this evening. I'm here as a longtime teacher in Madison. I'm proudly in my 3rd decade. My name is Carrie Matavila. I'm speaking tonight against the proposed unilateral changes to the MMSD handbook. Many will speak tonight, and you've received emails and comments from many members, educators in the district on their concerns of the impact of voting unilaterally to change a handbook, which up to this point has been collectively built by employees. But tonight, I really hope to communicate to the MSB board something else. I hope to communicate the deep and genuine investment that we at MTI, your educators, have to support and retain our colleagues, staff of color in all units. As project lead for the MTI Centers Grant, I'm here speaking tonight to counter the false narrative that the union is the problem, the untrue assertion that you need to pull us along or make us see. I'm here to show you that your teachers, through their union, are actively and strategically engaged in ongoing, meaningful social and racial justice work at every level. Madison Teachers Incorporated, the representative body of the MMSD staff, is committed to equity, including social and racial justice in all its forms. In its mission statement, the board asserts unequivocal support for the spirit and the work of anti-racism within the district and our larger Madison community. We believe that public schools have a moral responsibility to provide quality education, broad and equitable in its nature, to students with no exception, exclusion, and disparities. Those are our stated beliefs. We understand we have often fell short of these ideals, and we work and stand with our students, families, and communities dedicated to the work of dismantling this system. We understand and assert this work does not and cannot reside in one action, structure, or change. Rather, requires genuine ongoing commitment to first listen, then work to become the organization that supports our members. As such, as the project lead for the MTI Centers project, the collaboration to ensure retention and success, we are entering our 5th year of deep analysis and commitment to this work. It is part of our larger strategy to analyze why we're losing our staff and how to retain them. And our research shows key elements. The number one reason our research shows through LPI and through the Penn Institute are that our staff does not feel supported. We have hired the highest number of staff of color in the last 6 years in the teachers unit, yet we have not impacted our density. It is not through surplus and layoff that we're losing our staff of color. It is by lack of support and lack of feeling belonging. The union takes that very seriously. We have entered into a collaboration that we have supported over 1,000, I think to date it's up to 1,200 of our union members involved in this work to build their skills, their capacity, their knowledge of what it means to be an anti-racist educator, what it means to be an anti-racist union member. We are deeply invested in this work, and we would love for you to come back and collaborate with us. We are here. We are not going anywhere. We believe this work is key to our role in the union. You'll see that we understand language matters in our mission statement, in the equity and diversity statement, in the United for Change statement, and in the statement for anti-racism, all issued by our leadership. You'll see we understand representation matters. We have changed our leadership structure to elevate guaranteed representation for our staff of color, faculty reps for equity and diversity at every single building, elevating 70 new leaders in our structure to center equity and diversity. And we have engaged in workshops, engaging with 40 new collaboratives in the community around the work of equity and social justice and racial justice. We have 30 book groups, 20 Saturday sessions. Our teachers meet on Saturdays from 10 until 2 once a month. We've sponsored over 15 community events in the last 2 years, and we show 50% of our participants return. Your teachers through their union are deeply engaged in this work. This is not the right move to unilaterally change the handbook and end the collaborative nature that we have and possess. We show rating of support of 100% support for this work from people that are participating. They think this is the work of our union. And so I just end with saying that we don't have to do this now. We don't have to do this in this way. Your union is here and ready to work with you on creating the collaborative space in which we will become the 2 organizations that will retain, support, and believe in our staff of color. We have extended the grant for another 5th year. I'm very proud of the work we're doing, and I hope that you will see this as the evidence that we are not the problem. We are actually here doing the work with you, deeply engaged, invested in the work of anti-racism, invested in creating organizations that will attract, retain, and support a staff of color. Please vote against the unilateral changes and continue our tradition of collaboration around the employee handbook that makes us a stronger district for all of the students we serve. Thank you all for the work that you do. I'd like to thank also particularly board member Nikki Van Meulen and President Reyes for reaching out to me and giving me time. And I invite any of you to reach out to me and sit down and hear the deep research involved in this grant. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Kim Keon. Kim, when you are ready, you can begin.
Barb, we can't hear you really well.
Kim, can you hear us?
It's really low, the volume.
Thanks, Amanda.
Kim Keon, can you hear me?
Oh, did you call me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, you can begin.
As a teacher who has worked in MMSD for more than 20 years, I know in the past, MMSD and MTI have worked together and always reached consensus to collaboratively resolve outstanding issues. I believe that when teachers and administrators work together, good things happen for our students. I had felt deep respect and trust in our new superintendent when Dr. Jenkins appeared at several staff and community Zoom meetings with MTI representatives and promised collaboration with MTI. As an MMS teacher, I could not help but feel betrayed and deeply wounded when I heard that MMS abruptly changed the direction from the agreement with MTI last year and now is asking the board to impose unilateral handbook change on the surplus and layoff language policy at today's meeting. I'm concerned why MMSD is in such a rush on such critical issues as employees' job protections by unilaterally changing the handbook in a way that gives the administration complete authority over surplus and layoff decisions, effectively eliminating seniority and any teacher input. It is disappointing that MMSD is trying to just rush through this when the students and the community are facing more important issues like school reopening and the hidden camera investigation in its high school. It feels like the district is abruptly bringing up the surplus and layoff issues in order to distract our attention from the hidden camera investigation and threaten and silence outspoken staff. By removing the language of seniority, the administrators can put all the employees under their control, effectively blocking teacher voices and allowing the administrators favoritism, discrimination, and retaliation against teachers who speak out. It will also create labor tension among staff, creating competition, not collaboration. If MMSD truly cares about attracting and retaining teachers of color, they should put their effort on planning how to support them and creating clear, objective criteria on surpluses and layoffs. As a minority myself, I know that it is not the seniority, but how the administrators support the staff when a minority staff decides to leave the job. I have personally heard from a teacher of color who decided to leave MMSD just after teaching one semester because she couldn't stand the atmosphere of the school and could not find anyone who supported her. MMSD administrators say they want to remove seniority language from the handbook to attract and retain teachers of color, but in fact, what they really want is to gain their sole authority in schools. MMSD is presenting their rubric of teacher evaluation with a heavy weight on the rating for culturally responsible practices and the SLO, but these measures can be extremely subjective and give the principals the authority to use their bias against teachers who object or challenge their decisions. For example, I have had two very different evaluations from two different supervisors, one with very high scores and the other with extremely low scores. The supervisor who gave me the extremely low scores did not provide any evidence for her evaluation. Her evaluation was solely based on her bias, prejudice, and judgmental view. I have been unfairly treated and bullied by my supervisor numerous times, but had not found any place I could get help. Without seniority, as an older minority teacher, I would suffer throughout my years at MMSD from anxiety, stress, frustration, humiliation, and negative feelings, let alone the long-term health effects caused by these mental distresses. I would rather devote my time and energy working for my students than worry about my job security. More than anything else, the proposed changes allowing for teachers to be laid off with only 30 days notice are unthinkable in the public education system. I'm worried that this will not only lead to increased favoritism, discrimination, and targeting of staff that speak out, but also kill the employees' morale. How can teachers proudly devote themselves to our students in this kind of environment? In addition, I would like to ask the BOE to please restore the survey given to each teacher every year to evaluate their supervisor. MMSD staff used to have this survey every year, but at some point it mysteriously disappeared. It is not fair that only the principals can evaluate the teachers and not vice versa. I want you to value our teachers, the ones who work for our students in the front line. The administrator's job should be supporting teachers, not dominating or controlling them. I support MTI and believe that MTI does represent what is best for its workers, students, families, and communities. Please direct the district to meet with MTI and include the voice of our teachers. Thank you very much.
We have one more speaker signed up, Michael Jones, but they have not been able to join, so.
I'm here.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem.
Get started.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, board and Dr. Jenkins and everyone here. I'm Michael Jones, and as president-elect of MTI, I'm appreciative of the chance to speak tonight. I'm not speaking, however, in regards to the specific proposed handbook changes. I'm obviously not in favor of them, and I've spoken to that aspect to many of you individually and to the handbook committee in the process. But I'm also speaking about the flawed process that brought us here tonight. I will not speak on them again because I believe the outcome has already been determined, and I'd prefer to use my time discussing the past and future rather than the present. I've been part of many joint MMSD MTI ventures on topics ranging from the handbook to safety protocols to the shared goal of supporting and retaining new educators, especially our colleagues of color. Some of these collaborations have involved in us meeting first and crafting plans together. Some of these collaborations involved MMSD developing their own plans and not sharing these plans or their rationale with MTI until they're going right in front of the board the next week. The handbook process for the past year trended towards the latter. It would be easy for me to point that blame at particular people in the process, but doing so would not get me what I want and what I believe our employees, students, and families deserve, that we all need to do better. As a leader within MTI, I will own the fact that I have seen our relationship so far as transactional. If something was going to negatively impact the children under my care, the colleagues in my work, and our community, then only then would I reach out to you to raise hell. But all relationships are a two-way street, and sometimes it's felt like MTI would only be contacted by board members during election season. This is not a healthy relationship, not for those of us so intensely involved in the day-to-day work of planning and executing the work of educating our children, but it's not healthy for the children and families we serve. For the relationship only engenders heated actions and reactions and not a better understanding of each other as human beings. So I'm just going to speak quickly that I'm willing to ask why we haven't had more Board of Education members at our MTI leadership and committee meetings. If you're willing to ask why MTI members aren't given space at board meetings to hold discussions about our ongoing work instead of relying on the testimony of central staff, office staff only. I'm willing to push my colleagues in exploring the racism in our system, our curriculum, and our own practices, as long as you're also willing to openly and honestly willing to push your own administrators when MTI members speak up on racist policies and protocols that are pushed by the same administrators who will now be in charge of determining their employees' cultural competencies. I'm willing to fight back on the characterization that the Board of Education and administrators are only interested in the financial or political bottom line. If you're willing to fight back that MTI members are racist, obstructionist bullies hell-bent on the status quo. I know we can do better together. You know we can do better together. And I hope we will plan on doing so in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure. I got a message from somebody saying that they can't hear what's happening in this room. And I'm concerned that because people can't actually be physically in the room, this could be considered an illegal meeting if people can't hear it. I think we need to make sure technically people can hear it on YouTube.
We can hear you all very soft, very far away.
Amanda's situation might be a little bit different. I don't know, but I am checking in with our communications people and he's saying that they can hear us. So you
It's
are
also pretty
welcome to
soft for
talk
me.
to me.
So let's have, before we start, let's have each one of us say something into the mic. And we'll check in with our communications person on the other side to make sure that they can hear us. Let me know, Barb, when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I'm asking Barb, sorry.
Oh,
Thanks, Ananda.
Yeah.
sorry.
That's the kind of confirmation we're looking for.
I think it because of the mask and there's something with the volume. The last meeting was much better than now. And Julia, I heard Julia saying that it's also soft. And my volume is all the way up.
I want to confirm that they can hear you on YouTube. They're saying it's light, but they can hear you and you haven't been speaking much.
Can they
Yeah.
see us?
Yes, they can see you. Yes. I know you don't have it here, but they can see you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch us back from the high-powered one to the low-powered one. And I'll see if that improves the situation, but you can go ahead because we are plugged in.
Ananda, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just still a little bit soft.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Let's see.
Can you hear me
Say-
now?
Yes, I think it's better.
Okay, we're just gonna have to speak up louder.
Okay.
Dr. Jenkins, can you say something?
Yes, Ananda, can you hear me now?
It's much better. Now, remember, it's also capturing every single shuffling of paper and pen drop and needle drop, but it's much better.
Okay, and Ali? Just say-
Oh, are you asking me to say? Okay. Ananda, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Ananda?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Got a question?
Yes. Being that there were some technical difficulties, the request that our votes be roll call votes so that way people could hear the difference between who's voting because originally it was hard to hear and hard to see. I have a hard time when I watch a meeting with the plexiglass, seeing it with visual issues, so I was wondering if that could be done.
Do roll call votes, okay? Thank you, Nikki.
Is that acceptable?
Yes. Chris?
Thank you.
Yep, can you hear me, Ananda? Ananda, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's much better, Chris. Thank you.
Damian?
Test, Ananda?
Yes, thank you.
And this is the last one, Ananda.
Thank you. Yes, it's much better. Thank you so much, Barb, for working this through.
Thank you, Tech God Barb.
All right. Move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the approval of minutes. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated February 22nd, 2021.
Second,
Nikki, second. Any discussion?
and then
Okay, can we get a roll call vote? Ali?
Aye.
aye, Nikki.
Hi, Chris.
I, Sabian.
Aye, Chris.
Hey,
I,
oh, I'm sorry, Ananda. And Julia, your advisory vote?
Hi, Julia.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Next on to board president's announcements.
If you want to take your mask off, you are behind this plexiglass. You can do that if you want to.
Okay. I would like to officially announce, this is the process beginning for the renaming of Memorial High School. I would like to officially announce that the process has begun for the renaming of James Madison Memorial High School. The superintendent received a proposal last fall to rename the school in honor of Val Phillips. That proposal was submitted by Maya Berry and is attached to the agenda for this meeting, which you can find by looking on Board Docs or on, by clicking the link in the video description on YouTube. This announcement officially begins the 30-day timeline, allowing for additional proposals to be submitted for consideration. Any proposals submitted must fulfill the criteria laid out by our board policy number 6700, proposal for renaming a MMSD building, which can be found on the district's website in Board Docs. The Board of Education will begin its role, which is to select 12 members from the community to be part of the ad hoc renaming committee, including a chairperson. Board action to create this ad hoc committee is slated for the April 26, 2021 regular board meeting. Thank you, Maya, for your proposal. We look forward to working through the process with the community to rename Memorial High School. La Follette alum Kristen Jones publishes a book for young people with special needs. While recovering from a reconstructive operation in 2017, La Follette High School alumni Kristen Jones decided she wanted to empower young people through visual storytelling, publishing a children's book about living with spina bifida called Wonderfully Made. Kristen explains that her motivation for writing this book was to show children that their disability or medical condition does not define them as a person. The book, which features Kristen as the main character, is a story about perseverance, empathy, and determination. The board recognizes that and greatly appreciates Kristen's compassion and innovative approach to empowering youth with medical conditions and disabilities through her children's book. Thank you, Kristen. Yay. All right. Next, move on to superintendent's announcements and reports. Dr. Jenkins.
Okay, Chair Reyes and other members of the board, I'm very excited tonight to be joined by Ms. Nichelle Nichols and other members of our district staff, as we're going to give clear examples of Black excellence in our district and what it actually means as they show off their examples. When I came back to Madison, one of the things that excited me was the whole notion that as a district, we had set as a goal that Black children and youth would excel here in Madison. And I always ask the question, as I do with anti-racism, what does this look like? What does it feel like? How are our students being impacted? how are our families being impacted? How will our community be impacted with this whole idea of Black excellence? I think Ms. Nichols and the rest of the team members tonight are going to give clear examples of how we're moving in this direction. We know that we're on a journey. We're not there yet totally, but we're definitely moving forward. So at this time, I'm going to have Ms. Nichols and our team start with examples of Black excellence in our district.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Barb, would you be able to pull up the slideshow?
I'm hoping so.
Okay. Thank you, Barb. And if there's there may be a couple of members of the team who are planning to present tonight still in the waiting room. All right, so as we get ready to open, just as a reminder, I'm Nichelle Nichols, Executive Director of Equity and Engagement, and this presentation tonight will provide an update on several efforts taking place across departments and throughout our district to uplift our commitment to Black excellence in MMSD. Next slide. So tonight, you're going to get a spotlight from my colleagues about the work they are undertaking, often under the radar, to address systemic issues that hinder Black excellence in our district. And what I believe you will hear tonight is that there is important work underway to create the conditions for Black excellence to take hold so that all of our students will excel and also thrive. Now, as a reminder, when we started Black excellence a couple of years ago, we were driven by our student data. And as I began meeting with parents and community members about what it would take to make Black excellence achievable in MMSD, they pointed out human resources, professional learning, curriculum, supporting our advanced learners, building respectful, trusting relationships with families, and supporting our students directly with affirming experiences about who they are. So tonight's spotlight has invited some of my colleagues here to bring voice to the work that is happening in the district. This presentation is not an exhaustive list of all things happening, but a spotlight on the areas that have continued to be the most concern. Black excellence is dependent on our district's anti-racist actions and a commitment to deliver an equitable, excellent education for all students. We need these actions at every level of the system, and I think you'll get a glimpse of some of the work that we are embarking upon tonight. We have divided this presentation into 3 sections. The first area will focus on what efforts we are taking directly impacting staff. The second focuses on more of our instructional moves. And then the third section will spotlight how we're uplifting our partnerships and collaborations with families, community organizations, and we will wrap up with a special spotlight on Black Girl Magic. Next slide. As a quick reminder, our strategic framework has 3 goals. These 3 goals embody the district's equity policy, which calls out targeted universalism. The first 2 goals are universal. We want all children to be on track to graduate college, career, and community ready. And we want the district to be a place where children, staff, and families thrive. Goal 3 is, of course, our targeted goal. It calls out our African-American students because they have been historically underserved by our district. And we know this is true for many of our students of color, but goal 3 is where we started. Goal 3 is also tied to academic metrics and one climate and culture metric that we should be reporting on at least annually. Well, due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic and our starting of this school year virtually, tonight's update will not include any of those academic metrics tied to Goal 3 because we're still working through the academic data. But as soon as we are able to gather our data at the end of this school year, we will calibrate and then align our actions moving forward. Next slide. Many of you have seen this slide before. This slide really just brings to light that we have always led Black excellence with a clear statement about beliefs and mindsets. And beliefs and mindsets are important because we know that in order to change practice and actions, you must constantly be examining and interrogating and challenging your beliefs and mindsets. Barb, is everything okay? All right, cool.
Thank you.
No worries. And then furthermore, Black excellence also called out from the very beginning a commitment to create spaces for our Black staff, our families, our students to bring their experiences, their ideas, their intelligence, their creativity, their credibility, their lived experiences to the table to actually help us improve our district and to continue to strive for excellence. Next slide. These word associations help tap into the variety of ways our educators and district staff think about and describe Black excellence. I bring this back up tonight because our goal has been to amplify many of these ideas and aspirations to make Black excellence more than a catchphrase. I encourage you to just scan the words on this screen and find those that really resonate with you. As we get ready to go into our first section, one of the things that we know is common in terms of people's association with Black excellence is what are we actually doing to bring in Black teachers and to support the Black teachers that we have. So I'm going to now hand over this next section of the presentation to a couple of my colleagues, and then we will pause after our first section. Naja?
Hello, hello, hello. Hey, so I'm Naja Thompson and I'm proud. Barb, next slide, please, before I get started. Yeah, this is it. So hello, so I'm Naja Thompson. I'm proud to lead some of the recruitment and engagement work out of the Office of Human Resources. So this slide shows our incremental improvement over the last 7 years in hiring staff of color and Black teachers. The dark blue bar line is a staff of color and includes teachers and other support staff. The light blue bar line is our white staff over the same period. So as you can see, there are stark differences, and we have a long way to go to mirror the racial demographics of our student body. Next slide, Barb. So one of the strategies we have taken to build pipelines and attract Black teachers to MMSD is establishing connections with historically Black colleges and universities. This is a photo of me at Florida A&M University last spring, right before all educational institutions switched to virtual learning due to the coronavirus. Also on this slide is a snippet of an article they wrote about me being there. Other recruitment efforts have included forging relationships with diverse teacher preparation programs and recruitment partners around the country. And most importantly, creating inclusive school communities where our teachers of color thrive, not merely survive. So what I've come to learn in this role is that it's not enough to attract more teachers of color, specifically Black teachers to our district. We need more leaders of color in positions. We need more stability in our teacher rank, and people need to feel inspired to come to Madison. It's a big deal for us to have Dr. Jenkins here, and I'm excited to partner with Dr. Jenkins and senior leaders to get on the road to some of these HBCUs and minority serving institutions to show the trajectory and possibilities that exist in MMSD. Next slide, Barb. As I speak to potential candidates and teachers across the country, many are inspired by the work we are doing and want to be a part of it. They love that we have called out Goal 3, Black excellence and anti-racism. This slide shows our data with teacher hires and retention. You can see in 1920, 15% of our teachers are teachers of color. In that same year, 27% of our new hires were teachers of color. That's a dark blue line at the top. And 9% of those 27% of teachers of color were Black teachers. But we also see in the same year, 13% of staff of color resigned, which is a light blue line. Our data consistently shows us that it does us no good to have a revolving door in our diversity hiring efforts. We must create inclusive communities where staff and teachers feel like they belong, are engaged, and valued. Next slide, Barb. This is why we have been super intentional around the onboarding experience of our teachers, especially our Black teachers. We created a series of virtual coffee talks this year for staff to start building connections and relationships across the district prior to the beginning of the school year. We're also engaging in empathy interviews with our Black teachers to collectively understand their experiences. We plan to partner with Ford Madison and WEC, Wisconsin Evaluation Collaborative, to create a comprehensive overview of teachers of color experiences in our district. This assessment will help us fully understand the experiences of our teachers of color, so our organization can collectively and holistically disrupt and dismantle conditions that perpetuate inequities. We know the impact of isolation. So we are working to design cohorts of teachers of color so they're not subject to working in isolation as the sole teacher of color in their building. Our partnership with Ford Madison provides an opportunity for emergency certified special education teachers to pursue a master's in special education and certification at a highly discounted rate through a cohort model. There are current conversations happening now to expand our Grow Your Own opportunities for support staff to pursue a bachelor's degree in partnership with MATC and UW. We are pursuing all of these diverse efforts to, again, not only recruit and build pipelines of talented teachers, but create inclusive communities where they feel supported and ultimately thrive.
Thank you, Naja and Nichelle. I am Lachelle Fisher, and I'm honored to serve as our Director of Professional Learning. Thank you, everyone, for hearing from us tonight. I have had an opportunity to collaborate with Naja and Nichelle, as well as MTI, as you heard from Carrie earlier, to ensure we not only recruit, but also retain Black staff, because we provide a home, a community, and a sense of belonging. Barb, if you can go back one slide, that would be great. Thank you. We know the work of anti-racism is about people and systems. In order to address systemic issues that hinder Black excellence in our district, and to create the conditions for Black excellence to take hold, we must begin with our new staff. As Naja said, we lose more Black teachers than any other racial group, both new and experienced. We also see more Black staff in emergency certified roles, such as special education. It's vital that we have an intentional system of support for our Black teachers. And we know that by intentionally supporting our Black staff members, we are creating systems that support all of our staff. We also know how vital it is for our students to have teachers who look like them. And we've seen that research on the impact on all students of having even one Black teacher in their educational career. Last summer, Naja and I worked together to create a new way of building community among our newly hired staff, knowing that teaching in the midst of a health pandemic and racial violence was going to bring new challenges we hadn't ever navigated. We brought together our new hires in the coffee talks Naja mentioned, with topics like anti-racist teaching, and created spaces for folks new to Madison and spaces for Black staff, among others. Here you see quotes from two of our new Black teachers speaking to the community they felt upon entering MMSD this year. Community is one aspect of the work, one piece that creates conditions for Black excellence in our staff to shine. While that belonging is vital, there's more to it. Next slide, please, Barb. Thank you. Through the work of induction and mentoring, as well as wider professional learning, we work to strengthen the mindsets, beliefs, and anti-racist practices that are required in order to change the experiences our students are having in the classroom. Specifically, we received a DPI grant that we are using to intentionally honor the leadership of teachers of color in our schools and train them as mentors. Through intentional recruitment and principal nomination, 8 out of 10 of our new mentors are teachers of color. They will mentor beginning teachers at their respective schools, and we are focused on centering Blackness and Black excellence while intentionally decentering whiteness in our learning and mentoring spaces. Additionally, we're working specifically with our white mentors to ensure they have the training needed to support teachers of color. Mentoring is one of the key supports our new teachers name as they tell us why they stay in MMSD. And our Black staff especially appreciated mentors who not only shared their work experiences, but also life experiences. As we continue to refine professional learning across MMSD, Nichelle and I are working closely to ensure there isn't separation between professional learning and equity. We know that anti-racism is not a work or a single action, but a way of being. And lifting up Black excellence at every step of the way is an essential component. Through these efforts, we hope to see increased retention of teachers of color, an increased sense of belonging in our Black staff and staff of color, and a deeper belief in Black excellence among all staff in MMSD that is evident not only in our words, but also in our actions. Thank you.
Thanks, Lachelle. Barb, next slide. So to build on what Lachelle was saying about our professional learning, this year we built from last year's all district wide rally where we brought in Dr. Bettina Love. And we then asked schools to go back in the afternoon and complete a required professional learning experience specifically on the history of racism with a focus on housing and how racism has shown up in housing. This year, we wanted to continue to build, and we have formed a cross-departmental group called our Racial Equity Design Team. I'm sorry. Oh.
Sure, that's coming from Michelle, sorry.
Okay, should I start anything over?
No, go ahead.
All right, so this year, working with a cross-departmental group called our Racial Equity Design Team, we developed a self-assessment to be completed at the school level by their school-based leadership team at the beginning of the year. This assessment helps schools select an entry point for their professional learning this year. And depending on the answers to their self-assessment, they selected one of three phases, which you can see on this screen. They either identified their school community really still being in the discover phase around race and equity, or the disrupt phase, or dismantle. And we also conveyed to schools that none of these phases were static or permanent, that they became a differentiated place to begin and to deepen. These phases then became the place where school staff would deepen their professional learning this year. And in order to do that, we also built out a website called the MMSD Anti-Racism Resources website, developed with all kinds of resources from videos to articles, linked in under each of the phases. We then also developed 3 different professional learning modules that would help schools, depending on the phase they were in, deepen the work as they started this year. We have also on this website come up with suggested scopes and sequences for the ways that schools can continue the journey on the in the work. We've provided consultation for school staff, and we have continued to survey our schools on how they think their professional learning, specifically on race, equity, and anti-racism, is going. The one thing that virtual learning has afforded us this year is that we had dedicated professional learning time each month to focus on race, equity, and anti-racism. And we know that schools have used approximately 2 to 4 hours a month at minimum, with the intention of having educators build this capacity to heighten their own awareness, to sit in discomfort, and then to change those into practices that will positively impact students. Next slide, Barb. This slide gives us just a few of the phases that schools selected at the beginning of the year. And then also on this website, we are We do have website analytics that we are monitoring to see how often the website is being used. We did a December survey of schools to see how they were measuring the impact of their race and equity professional learning at the school level. And based on some of that feedback, we heard some themes. And one of the themes was that schools wanted more concrete examples of anti-racist, culturally responsive practices in the classroom. What does that look like? What are educators doing? And so even just last week, we pulled together some of our very own MMSD educators on a showcase to really bring clear examples to the surface. As we finish out this year, we will be reaching out to schools to observe, to also collect examples of the professional learning they have developed, to spotlight best practices, and we will do one more end of the year survey. And I think at this point, Barb, if you go to the next slide, we have a pause built in. And so to Board Chair Reyes, I'm not sure if you want us to pause after each of the sections or just keep going.
Are there any questions right now? On the board? Okay, go ahead, you can keep going.
All right, thank you. All right, and next we are going to move into the section of our presentation that is really focused on some of the instructional parts of Black excellence. So I'm going to hand this over to Marty Moe.
Thank you, Nichelle. Thanks, board, for having us. Super excited to be here tonight and share the work that we're doing. So I'm Marty Moe. I'm the K-12 Social Studies teacher leader with the Curriculum Instruction Office. As my colleague shared earlier, who our teachers are matters. The supports and learning we provide those teachers and educators is critical. And the work we've been engaging in across the school year in the past several years, as my colleague shared, is so important in how our district's approaching both Black excellence and anti-racism. While this training, learning, and supports are essential, how we approach the learning side inside of the classrooms is also playing a crucial role. To address this, we begin to start the process of re-envisioning and rewriting our social studies curriculum from K to 12 in both ELI and DLI programs, dual language immersion programs. So what is chosen for our curriculum really speaks to what it is that we value, both what is included and what is excluded, and then how those ideals are portrayed within the curriculum. So we are going to begin to intentionally work to dismantle white supremacy culture as it shows up in our curriculum. We're going to diversify the voices of the stories of our past and present and future, and create an inclusive learning environment in which students of color feel seen, respected, and therefore safe. We're going to intentionally provide our students with the opportunity to analyze how the systems have and continue to perpetuate racism, and in doing so, also providing opportunities for students to be active participants in working to dismantle those practices and the structures that continue to harm our communities today. To do this, we're going to center our curriculum in African and African American histories and stories, and take care to develop intersectionalities and opportunities to engage in learning about other histories and stories as well, using a method of windows and mirrors to allow students to learn more about their own identities, the identities of others, and how they are connected to each other, and move away from the Eurocentric curriculum that has been traditionally taught in this country. Next slide, please. Supporting the development and implementation of this curriculum, we're going to provide professional learning opportunities for our teaching writing teams that we're developing and putting together, focusing on both new content as well as the pedagogical practices that we're going to be in teaching. To support our work, we've developed a partnership with the Carter Center for K-12 Black History Education and Dr. LeGarrette King, who's out of the University of Missouri. They're going to provide professional learning for us on ways that we can authentically shift the ways in which we develop and implement this new curriculum. Next slide, please. We had our first section with Dr. King on March 8th with the curriculum writing teams. It was going to be elementary and secondary teams, but initially we started with secondary due to that return to schools in April. So we shifted that. And so we'll start meeting with the elementary teams in April. Rosa Thompson will be also working closely with me on that part of the project. And we also had students there. And we'll also continue to partner with them throughout the curriculum development process over the next 3 years. Dr. King used that day to really introduce a set of principles called the Black Historical Consciousness Principles, which you can see on the right side of your screen, to help us think about how we consider to approach Black history, really thinking about teaching through Black history and not about Black history. Next slide, please. This process will be inclusive by including various stakeholders into the process. We're going to engage families, community members, local experts, and historians, and most importantly, our students through a student advisory committee that we're actively forming right now. Some of those students were able to attend that day-long PD with us. We're going to meet with the stakeholders to discuss the curriculum, think what's missing, what's been missing, what do we need to see included, receive feedback, as well as hear ideas on what students are experiencing in the classroom, both what is taught, how it's taught, and what is excluded. And so the question is, of course, when's this going to happen? So starting, as you can see on this timeline on the screen, starting next fall in 2021, our 8th grade social studies teachers will be implementing a new social studies curriculum. The modern U.S. African American history course, which is currently at West High School only, will be implemented in all 6 high schools across the district. And we're going to have a new advanced placement U.S. history textbook where teachers will also be, once selected, will be developing a supplemental reader to ensure that we have representation across all of the peoples who make up this country within it. In the fall of 22, we will be implementing new learning in kindergarten, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade, which is U.S. history. Those teams are also being pulled together this spring to begin the writing process, and those teams are also receiving some professional learning. And then in the fall of 23, which will begin developing next spring, we'll implement in 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 7th grade. As we design and implement, we're going to make sure to take care to ensure there's vertical alignment, both in the content and the skills used to access that content. And of course, putting a deep focus on developing civic engagement skills and practices, including a focus on local governments, beginning with our youngest students. And just really quickly to wrap it up, all of this idea of shifting the what we're teaching is also coming at the same time that we'll be implementing new social studies standards, which are really inquiry focused, focused on getting students to ask questions, to really analyze and research, communicate, and then ultimately tie everything back to civic engagement. Thank you. And I think Sharon, Dr. Alexander will be going next.
Vicki, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's directly. to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say thank you first on the civics part, because that is my question. We're finally starting to teach civics in the younger grades. What worries me is unless you take AP government or certain courses, we don't teach civics as much in middle and in certain high school. And is there a way we could design a civics class so we have people who are aware, not just how government works, but how the legal system as well works? Because these are major life concepts that it's not just I'm an attorney, but the number of times I run into people who don't know how the system works, including its racial biases, which need to be addressed. We don't teach it. People, unfortunately, are going to learn, but they're going to learn by serving time. I don't want anybody to learn it that way. So I'm wondering if we could put that in as part of the civics to learn about how these things work, how the public defender system works, how voting works, how the importance of not just government, but local action works, how the Black Lives Matter movement changed history, which it clearly did. How the ADA actually became involved in even the intersectionality between the ADA and the Black Panthers. Without the Black Panthers being involved in the 504 sit-ins, there wouldn't have been an ADA. And I just hope we find materials that cover the true intersectionality of the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of that, what you talked about, is something that absolutely has to be covered, both integrated within courses, and potentially developing courses outside of it that stand alone, whether that's at middle school and or in high school levels as well. So yeah, I appreciate that idea and that thinking. So thank you.
Any other questions before we move forward?
Ali, I think that's.
Yeah, so I have a few questions for different members of the team. I want to start by thanking all of you for presenting. But first, my first question is for Naj. You mentioned our partnership with Forward Madison in terms of kind of growing your own and doing so through those who have emergency license, being able to access a master's in education. I've often questioned, our approach to Pathways and why Pathways does not include an education track that allows for our students to explore their interest in becoming educators. What are we doing to, make sure that Grow Your Own includes the young people we are educating from kindergarten through senior year?
Yeah, so I can speak to a little bit of that. And thanks for that, Ali. I super agree wholeheartedly with all of that. First and foremost, I would just say what we have as a Grow Your Own program that builds pathways in a pipeline from high school is our Teen Scholars with Forward Madison. And they're in second or third cohort. But to that point, it's kind of late in the game, right? We're talking high school, right? Upperclassmen in high school. So what are we doing in Pathways? That's something I would love to entertain, and something I would love to do. Get me in front of kids to talk about the power of education, please. But yes, thinking about those pipelines and pathways is something we need to think about critically, and potentially Pathways being a part of that is something we should consider.
Thank you for highlighting the Teen Scholars cohorts, Raj.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I want to ask my second question to Marty Moe and our Director of Advanced Learning. So Marty, you spoke very specific.
Can you just speak up a little louder?
Yes, I can try for sure.
Is that better? You guys hear Ollie?
I can hear her.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
All right, my second question is for you and for our Director of Advanced Learners. Oftentimes when we talk about inclusive curriculum, there is an emphasis on Black history, which is a singular subject area, right? And so then Black students don't see themselves reflected in their English classes. They don't necessarily see themselves reflected in their arts classes, and a series of other opportunities. The other thing that I want to emphasize in this question is the 5 areas of advanced learning. And including recognizing students in the areas of leadership and in the areas of performing arts, and what it looks like to expand what we're offering in terms of advanced learner opportunities and identify diverse students in all of those areas with a wide range of abilities, including things like dance and theater.
If it's okay, I could go on to my slide because I think I will be speaking directly to your question. And this is the next slide, and perhaps may answer exactly what you're asking for. So I realize that when people think about advanced learning, first and foremost, my name is Dr. Sharon Alexander. I am the Director of Advanced Learning and have been in the position since June of this year. I'm very excited to also be here this evening to represent the Curriculum Instruction Department and our Executive Director, Kaylee Jackson. Can everyone hear me okay?
No.
No. Okay, let me work on my volume. I just got off the interstate, so. Let me try this again. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Just speak
Okay,
louder.
I am so sorry. I'm using my phone. I just got out of the car traveling from the Chicagoland area and happened to get right to this section right when I got off the interstate, so forgive me. My name is Dr. Sharon Alexander. I am the Director of Advanced Learning and representing the Curriculum and Instruction Department as we have been talking about advanced learning and looking at advanced learning differently than solely looking at those students at the very, very top of our hierarchy. What we've been looking on this year is specifically looking at talent development. And this year we're going to be working in consultation with Dr. Donna Ford. She is a multicultural educator from The Ohio State University. She is one of the national most recognized individuals for working with talent development and focusing our attention on what are the needs of students with potential in our district, and specifically for students that truthfully, maybe if they're just given a chance or access and rigor, access to rigor, that would be their opportunity for them to thrive. So we've been slowly but surely working with Dr. Ford, coming to our ALAC meetings, getting her involved with working with our students and our teachers and our advanced learning specialists. We're really building that understanding of what talent development is, what that will look like in MMSD, and then using that information to start identifying, again, those different learners for our 5 gifted areas so that we could really, again, offer the rigor, but also the leadership, those intense relationships to some of the other areas of giftedness. One of the other areas that's been extremely important for us this year is really getting on board with our earned honors programs and ensuring that not only is earned honors offered through our pathways, but also offered as a pathway for other individual students to perhaps take on additional coursework at the high school. So we want to have a trajectory that students have every opportunity to feel successful in the classroom, be exposed to rigor, and be able to be do well on a performance assessment and earn honors in their classroom. With those opportunities, it'll allow our students to then be better prepared for our advanced placement courses. We want students to really think about some of our other additional college and career readiness opportunities within the district. And that is our focus as we start looking at what different ways can we start allowing more students access to rigor. It's not just those high performing students, but all students. And what are we doing to ensure that those students have those opportunities and then are supported as they go through that process? So that would be our drive for this year. We're excited to have this partnership and then be able to answer again those questions that Ali just mentioned about really finding what that talent is in our district and then fortifying and making sure that that's what we focus on for the years to come.
Thank you so much for speaking to that.
I believe this is
Michelle,
the
did
end
you-
of our section. Questions?
Michelle, did you have a next section to go through?
Yep, we have quite a bit more on this presentation.
Let's get to it, and then we'll ask any more further questions at the end.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sharon, appreciate you. All right, next we're gonna take a focus on special education. Joanne Grassman and Nancy Molfenter are here to talk about some work they're doing.
Thank you, Nichelle. Thank you to the board members for having us. I'm Joanne Grassman. I'm one of the assistant directors in our student services department. And I and my colleague Nancy Molfenter will give you introduction to what we are doing around anti-racist IEPs. And this project started with some wonderings from our program support teachers. They reported that when they read IEPs for our Black students with disabilities, they were left with that feeling that the content was biased toward negativity. And for our students with disabilities, we want our IEPs to bring hope. We want them to bring optimism. They shouldn't be vehicles that perpetuate negative perceptions or contribute to feelings of alienation. So we started with some analysis of IEP content at the high school level, looking for answers to 2 questions. The first was, are our IEPs actually written differently for Black students than for white students? And if so, do those differences create a negative impact for our Black students? What you see in this first slide here is a few of the differences that we've discovered so far. And unfortunately, the answer to that first question was, yes, they are written differently. And we do believe that they contribute also to disparate income or disparate outcomes for our Black students. So the analysis, we're continuing the analysis so that we can better understand differences. We want to look at different ages, different types of disabilities, but it's apparent already to us that there are differences and that those are differences that negatively impact our students. So we're moving forward with our action steps. And Barb, the next slide, please. The work that we're doing is to purposefully identify and to disrupt the IEP content and the process of developing IEPs that perpetuates negative and low expectations for our Black students, and replace them with content and actions that uplift our Black students. Next slide, please. So obviously the process of developing an IEP is directly tied to the content of the IEP. And we're thinking about these two areas as two streams of work, focusing on content and on the process of developing IEPs. So in terms of the content, what we will be expecting is IEP language that uplifts Black excellence. Language that speaks to students' strengths, to what they want for their future, their aspirations, and that carefully identifies academic and disability-related needs as skills that are to be taught by educators. And the next slide, please. To do this, we really need to look at multiple processes that need to change, starting with how we come to understand the true underlying influences and causes of behavior, which is the area that most often is written, we would perceive as written negatively in our IEPs. And when we do that, when we really come to understand the true underlying causes of behavior, these may be related to lagging skills, but not necessarily. And we are discovering that we also need to look for influences that might not be disability. We need to understand our Black students' experience in school and the other systemic challenges that impact our Black students. We need to ensure that their voice is at the center of the IEP development process. And I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, who will talk a bit more about our next steps and how we're doing this work.
Thank you, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Nancy Molfenter. As Joanne said, I am another assistant director in the Student Services Department. Could I get the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So what are we doing? What are our next steps? Well, a district-wide work group has begun to develop parameters to describe what an anti-racist IEP or individual education program looks like in order to help teachers understand what to do to create positive change. So we want to focus on what needs to be done. In addition, a process to review IEPs to ensure that they are written using anti-racist language and tools will be developed and implemented. So based on these two goals, the work group has identified multiple stakeholders that need additional knowledge and skills in order to achieve our collective goals. The stakeholders will include special education teachers, people who serve as local education authority representatives at IEP team meetings and are often the decision makers at IEP team meetings, along with all of the other team members, and related service providers, assistant directors, PSTs, building principals, and administrators. And then most importantly of all, our students and our parents at all building and grade levels as the most critical team members on the IEP. So we have begun to work with scholar Dr. Ashley White, who is new to UW-Madison and has extensive experience and research in this area. Dr. White will be assisting with decisions about next steps in data analysis and professional development for teachers, which will begin on April 12th. Thank you very much.
Can
you wait until after?
It's directly related to it, otherwise I would.
Okay, Nikki has a question related to.
To the special ed
Go ahead.
piece. which is, you stated the LEA is the decision maker. I thought the entire team, everyone had, that people had to be in agreement as a team. It wasn't just one decision maker, it was multiple decision makers, or am I incorrect on that?
So thank you, Nikki, for asking that question. I absolutely misstated that and worked to correct it in the rest of my presentation statements. So you are absolutely right. That was just nervousness coming out in the presentation. So thank you for asking that question, Nikki.
That was the only question I had.
Okay, let's move forward.
All right, thank you. I want to just acknowledge, I know our presentation is very thorough and is taking a little longer. So we're going to finish up with just our quick overview of our last section, which highlights our collaboration and partnership with families, community organizations, and then I'll kind of close out with Black Girl Magic. So Angela, if you can provide our next overview, and then we will be done very shortly.
Sure thing, Nichelle. I'll try to be efficient. So hi, everyone. I'm Angela Fitzgerald Ward, Director of the Family, Youth, and Community Engagement, or FICE Department. Happy to share with you about the funding support we provided to our multicultural parent affinity groups. But to give you some context, FICE previously funded ideas from schools to strengthen their relationships with families. This year, in response to the disproportionate impact of multiple pandemics and virtual learning, we have intentionally shifted the use of these funds to support parent-led ideas from our historically marginalized families who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color, or BIPOC. So schools were invited to submit many proposals in January to use funds to either contract with community orgs, LLCs, or facilitators external to MMSD to support our BIPOC parent affinity groups, or to work directly in partnership with BIPOC parent groups to implement parent-led ideas and activities, which is so important to us. We wanted to center the needs of our BIPOC families, as well as include them in decision-making on how funds are used. So $59,980 total was dispersed to the 13 schools who submitted proposals. 2 of those schools are Kennedy Elementary and Cherokee Heights Middle School. Kennedy's multilingual families decided to use the funds to host game nights for families to connect and build community, while the Cherokee Heights FACE team decided to use the funds to contract with Infamous Mother CEO and founder, Dr. Sagacious Livingston, to support their Black family affinity groups. So we plan to evaluate the use of these funds at the mid-semester to further understand impact and to inform future strategies around strong homeschool community partnerships, because we see this investment as vital to student success and the transformation of culture and climate within MMSD. So handing it back over to Nichelle.
Thank you, Angela. You did a great job. Next slide, please, Barb. And then we also just wanted you all to know that we are continuing to meet with parents who are raising Black children in our district. We've had monthly meetings since October with our Black Excellence Coalition. 3 of those meetings that you can see on the screen brought in either district staff or guest speakers. And also to note, our original think tank that helped us a couple of years ago is being used a little differently this year. 5 of our think tank members were part of our review committee for our RFP process for Black Excellence. Others are working side by side with other district leaders, and I'll be calling on them again as soon as we get our community organizations up and running with the Black Excellence proposals so that they can help bring voice to how we plan to measure the impact of those programs. Next slide. And this slide is just a reminder of the organizations that we selected from the RFP process. We're eager to see programming get up and running. And now I'm going to quickly hand it over to Rosa Thompson to close us out with a shining example of how we are supporting students and affirming who they are. Rosa?
Thank you, Nichelle. Hello, everyone. My name is Rosa Thompson, and I am an advanced learning teacher at Shank Elementary School, and I'm the founder of the Black Girl Magic Conference. This year, due to the COVID pandemic, and what we found was the need to engage our Black girls in events throughout the year. I made a decision to host at least 1 event each quarter, in addition to our end of the year Black Girl Magic Conference. So for the first time this year, we also provided programming for our K2 schools, and we did a high school event for Black and multiracial girls. The first event that we held this year was the Black Girl Magic Virtual Sister Circles. in October of 2020. This was a 4-part event led by Black women from the Madison community who were trained as circle leaders or in restorative justice, educators, social workers, therapists. And we created this healing space as we felt like there's been so much trauma nationwide from March until October, as well as right here in our community. And we were worried about our younger girls being forgotten and not being given space to heal and process these events. So then next we partnered with the UW Black Graduate and Professional Student Association to host the Halloween Science Fair for our K-2 students at Midvale, Lapham, and Franklin. The Black Girl Magic Conference provided supplies, science supplies for the girls, and they had the opportunity to perform multiple science projects led by UW grad students. In January, we hosted the Black Girl Magic College Kickback for junior and senior Black and multiracial young women. Given the fact that our BSUs were unable to go on their annual HBCU college tours last year and will be unable to go this year, we wanted to create a space for the young women to ask questions about topics like being a Black woman on campus, college tips, resources, and hear from other Black women who had been in their shoes. So the afternoon included a DJ. We heard from Gail Ford, who is the executive director of the People Program. There was a panel with college students from PWIs and HBCUs, breakout sessions, and college trivia. Today, we resumed the Black Girl Magic Sister Circles for our 4th through 7th grade girls. We were really honored to be able to host Miss Universe, Zosie Tunzi, who shared her story and words of wisdom by being the first South African Miss Universe and the first Miss Universe with natural hair. So our focus for the spring Sister Circles is protest art and the role that art plays in activism. And we also hosted Black women who created art for the State Street murals and are featured in the American Family Let's Talk About It books, which all of our girls received. And they shared their inspiration behind their artwork. Our last event for the 2020 school year will be our 4th annual Black Girl Magic Conference, will be held virtually on Friday, May 28th for all 4th through 8th grade girls who identify as Black and multiracial. Our theme will be youth activism and advocacy, and we are looking forward to a phenomenal virtual day of guest speakers, breakout sessions, community building, and lots of virtual fun. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rosa. So for the board members and Dr. Jenkins, that concludes our update. Thank you again for allowing us to have time on your agenda for this Black Excellence update. And it's our hope that you can see some of the work that is happening across the district to really create conditions that will actually uplift and support Black excellence. At this time, if you have any questions or comments for any of the presenters, we can take those. If you would not have any questions or comments, we understand. And again, thank you for the time.
Great. Thank you, Nichelle and entire staff for coming tonight. This was very informative. I'm really happy to see all the great work that you are leading, Nichelle, and all the great work that's happening around Black excellence. And I really do like that I see a difference here and that we're really touching on curriculum and instruction, right? I mean, I think when we first started, it was very much, the parent groups and then the working with organizations, which was really set the foundation. But I think moving in now into IEPs even, I mean, this is excellent work. And I'm just wondering, I think how we connect it to the evaluation and how much, when are we going to evaluate? How do we know what we're doing is working? And so, I really like the teacher recruitment and that diagram. I think that's really helpful for us. But being able to not only evaluate the impact, but deviate when needed and do it quickly, right? Be really innovative, and just change trajectory if we need to, right? And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are around that.
Yes, I appreciate that question, Gloria. I think that, one of the things that we do need to work on moving forward is having some kind of a dashboard that we can pull out the metrics that we are using to really identify success of each of these efforts. So that is something that I'm looking forward to us working on in the near future. I think one of the other reasons why we wanted to present the information that was presented tonight is to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and to get a better idea of what's happening inside departments that sometimes is hard to uplift and understand. And so I also think we need to have more of a plan that is easy to find, easy to read, and that we would have a way of coming back to that equity plan as a way of being able to identify our movement on those key metrics, and to your point, to also shift or pivot when needed. So the question is a great one, and that is some of the future work that we will be taking on.
Yeah, I love the idea of the dashboard that you just talked about, right? Where somebody could just log in and use it as we move through this work. I also can see now what Dr. Jenkins has been talking about when he says, like, when we initiated and launched Black Excellence, we were like, well, what is it? How do we feel it? Like, where does it go? And is it separate? How do we use it? And it's like, now I sort of see that transition into infusing it in everything that we do within our school. So excellent job, everyone, for your work on this. I see the progress. I see now the vision moving forward. And so, yeah, thank you for everything. Any questions? Chris?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for this presentation. I also want to echo that comment that I see this as a much more comprehensive approach. And I like to see all the different pieces and factors, and we'll look forward to continued updates on this. I guess my question is more specific around the curriculum that we were talking about if we go way back. And I don't know if this is a question for Marty or somebody else, but can you clarify if we are developing our own curriculum, or if we are taking curriculum that has been used and been successful in other places, adapting it to what we need, or what is our approach here? The reason I ask is because I've done curriculum development before, and it takes a lot of time to do that, to create your own. And I know we like to do that in Madison, but there could be a lot of useful resources out there that we could be actually adopting and utilizing that would meet our needs. So I guess I'm curious about the strategy.
Yeah, I'll address it, and anyone can jump in who works with me if they feel like it. But we're creating our own, but we are looking at the same time. So if there's things out there that meet our needs and are doing what we're trying to do with this work, then we'll be happy to kind of look into taking and adapting, or taking and modifying it so it specifically meets our needs. Sorry. But right now, yeah, we're beginning the process of actually digging in and really going into developing our own curriculum, which is why for most of it, it's like 1.5 years out, realizing that we need that time to be really thoughtful. The 8th grade work is going to be coming up fast, so we're going to have to make sure that we're adaptable and ready to, I think, to the point that was just brought up a few minutes ago, seeing if it's working, not working. If it's not working, we're going to have to be able to adjust quickly and think about how do we fix it and make it better. So at the same time, there's other school districts that are doing this work. Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County. I'm meeting with them once a month. They've been doing this work for 3 years now, and they've developed curriculum around inquiry as well as using Dr. King's principles. So engaging with other school districts, engaging with content experts, as well as some university people.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to see some of the work that other school districts have done already based on this work. So that would be great to see along the way here too. Kaylee, you look like you were going to jump in.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Marty. So yes to everything he said. And I also think that we just have to be sure that we understand there's a difference between curriculum and resources, right? So we are certainly, when he speaks to creating curriculum, we're speaking to making the standards come to life in our classrooms using high quality resources, right? And so a lot of the work that Marty is doing right now with teacher teams that are currently in the schools is looking at those high quality resources that center the true history of our Black people and lifting those experiences to life, right? So I don't want the narrative to be we're creating everything from scratch, because that isn't the case. We are using high quality resources in order to make the standards come to life across our classrooms.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, my question, and I think we're going to talk about this in April about advanced learning and earned honors and how that all fits together. But I guess I would just like to encourage us when we do get to that topic that we've over the years, we've really gotten caught up with advanced learning and identification, and the part about the making sure that we're providing the opportunities and the programming for students that is matched to the identified need. So if Ali is talking about identifying in the arts, what programming and opportunities do we have in arts to match that learning need that students have? And so if we can make sure that we're doing that as we're talking about how to do the advanced learning piece, that would be great.
Great. Any other questions, Chris?
No, that's it. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Anybody else? All right, let's move on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I know we want to move on, but I just have to lift. Thank you so much to Michelle and the entire team, the way that you represented. This is what we were talking about in the beginning. What does it look like, feel like, as you said, Gloria, this really is giving us some insight, but we're going to come back to actual measurements, as Michelle said, and we're talking to research and evaluation, so we can get to that dashboard that you mentioned. And we had Rosa Thompson on here, Black Girls Magic. We cannot get out of here without lifting her up. I mean, that is like, has gone viral. So I just want to say thank you to her and the entire team, how you brought all of this together. I'm looking forward to the work we're going to do to really seriously take Black excellence to the next level. And we know this, we take Black excellence to the next level, everything rises. Okay, so I just want to say that.
That's a great note to end on, right? So, okay, let's move on to report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group. Ananda?
Gloria, can I go next, please?
Yeah, I think I can report on that.
Oh,
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, is Savion reporting on that, Ananda? Okay, go ahead.
Yep, so last instruction work group on March 1, we talked about reopening instruction, summer school, and also had a good conversation on our Opportunity Youth programming. Looks like no action items flowed through that work group. However, our next instruction work group will be April 5, where we will be talking about, or we will have another update concerning reopening schools, virtual programming for the next school year, and earned honors.
Great, thank you for that, Savion. Next is report on items that proceeded through the operations work group. Chris?
Thank you, Gloria. Operations work group met on March 8th. We had a lengthy discussion about the budget, and we have a few action items that came out of that conversation, specifically some early approval votes on healthcare, summer semester, and strategic equity projects. We also talked about the employee handbook, specifically layoff and surplus language in the handbook, and we also have a vote or an action item related to that tonight as well. Our next meeting is April 12th. We will again be working on the budget. We'll be talking about community input on our referendum plans, and then we have a couple of policies that we'll be looking at as well.
Great.
Well, may I make a motion to please move the employee handbook up before the early approvals because it honestly may affect how I vote on them.
And so the handbook language revisions will impact. how you vote?
Financially, yes.
Okay, Nikki's making a motion. Is there a second? Okay, no second. Okay, motion fails. Okay, next, no action, no, for the instructor work group, no action items that proceeded through the operations work group. Early budget proposal, healthcare. I move that the Board of Education approve increasing the current 2020-21 healthcare budget by an estimated 1.6 million and maintaining GHC and Dean as MMSD providers while maintaining the primary healthcare plan.
Second, Nikki.
Nikki, second. Any discussion?
Then roll call, right?
Yep, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, Julia, aye. Ali?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ananda. Next, item 9.2, early budget proposal 2021 summer semester. I move that the Board of Education approve the 2021 MMSD summer semester model and 2021 budget in the amount of $6,276,803 with up to $2 million in one-time federal COVID-19 funding, $435,000 in title funding, and up to $3,841,803 from the 2021-22 summer school operating budget.
Second, Ali.
Ali, second. Any discussion? Okay, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Ali?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Sabian?
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Aye. Gloria, aye. Motion passes. And next is the early budget proposal, excellence in equity projects. I move that the Board of Education grant early approval of the following 2021-22 budget. Request to facilitate timely ordering of long lead time materials, equipment, or to accelerate necessary planning for summer and fall programs. A, an increase of $1,300,000 to the 2021-22 elementary staffing budget and early childhood program staffing and non-personnel budget to launch the district's first ever full-time 4K program using local resources. B, an increase of $216,000 to the 2021-22 mental health budget to support expansion of the bounce back program and sustainability of the behavioral health in schools program. C, an increase of $436,000 to the high school staffing budget to support a new restorative justice coordinator position in each comprehensive high school using local resources. And E, an increase of $609,000 to the middle school staffing budget to support 6.0 more FTE counselors across middle schools to lower the overall student to counselor support ratios using local resources.
Second. Chris
Second, Chris Goldschmidt. Okay, discussion?
Yes. I think these are excellent plans. I wish I could vote for them like that until the employee handbook. I really feel strongly about making sure we have the funds to take care of our teachers and take care of our staff. That's why I have to vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ali, you want?
So I just want to uplift the work of Dr. Jenkins in bringing full day 4K to our district for the first time. I'm very excited to support these initiatives, and I'm very excited for the work we've done to make summer semester, an expansive academic experience for our young people this year. So thank you for this work, and I'm excited to vote and support it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, particularly during this time. Sabian?
Yep, I just want to echo the excitement around all day 4K and the work leading up to that. I think that is a huge moment for the community and one of the most important things we can do as a board to support closing the opportunity gap in our community. And two, I really want to uplift the work of our restorative justice committee and that work that's done to really transform restorative justice in secondary, but also throughout our entire education system. So it's been great to work with you, Gloria, on that committee, and this is an exciting moment.
Yeah. Thank you, Savion. Any other comments? Hey, Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Holly?
Aye. Nay.
Nay?
Aye, Chris.
Chris, aye. Savion?
Yes. Aye.
Chris Gomes-Schmidt?
Aye.
Ananda?
Aye.
Gloria, aye. So 6 ayes and 1 nay.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, next item. Employee handbook language revisions. I move that the Board of Education adopt modifications to the MMSD employee handbook as set forth in the documents prepared for this agenda, August 18th, 2021, effective July 2021. Before we can I get a second?
Second.
Savion, second. Discussion? Nikki?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment, and then I have 2 comments and 1 question, if I may.
Great. Nikki, before you begin, I just want to, just a few discussion points I
Sure.
want to throw out there before we start discussion. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure that we understand that this motion represents the language our community was notified that would be brought forward to the release of public documents on February 19th, 2021. Okay. Discussion point number 2, as the motion stands, the rubric, which will be the tool used to support the changed handbook language, will not be part of the employee handbook. District leadership, I just want to, at our last meeting, we asked the question about how many times district leadership has met with MTI. They met extensively throughout the school year with MTI leadership. There have been 70 meetings between district leadership and MTI leadership since September 3rd, 2020. Each meeting lasted for approximately 1 hour. There have been 23 Friday mornings where the superintendent met for 1 hour with MTI leaders since September 11th, 2020. And there were 20 handbook meetings from October to March 2021. Each meeting lasted for approximately 90 minutes. I just wanted to make sure, Chris, that we got that question answered for the board, as that was last time.
Actually, on number 2, are we allowed to make that amendment on the handbook? Because otherwise we're voting on a draft. We can't vote on a draft.
What is your question?
If it lives outside the handbook, the rubric and everything related to it would be voting on a draft because the percentages could be changed.
So
that wouldn't, then we are legally voting on a draft, which we can't legally do.
So can we get legal on the line? Sounds like Nikki has a legal question, Sherry. Did you hear that?
Sure. Yes, I did. So Nikki, are you saying that as proposed, the language in the proposal document, the red line document that says handbook proposal, that is the language that we're talking about? I don't understand your question about the rubric being in draft.
The rubric.
If you're not voting on the rubric,
I'm asking
then,
to vote on it.
And it's, has a motion been made to amend it to vote on
That's,
the,
that's what I was planning to make. I was asking if it was legal to make one.
you can make the amendment and then I can explain why I think that that is probably not the best thing to do in this instance. But the board has to second that amendment. Otherwise, it is not up for discussion at this point.
Okay, so make your motion.
All right, my two motions.
Just let's start with the first one.
Okay, the first one is I move, sorry, I gotta read my own handwriting, so I need my glasses, I'm getting old. I move under 6.2A. I move in addendum A, section 6.2. I move to remove the revised language on notice of layoff regarding 30 days and regarding the 30 days and regarding any firing in October, November, which was removed, but I just would like it to be official.
Okay, let's start with the rubric.
You said put your first motion, that was my first motion. The second one is my rubric one.
Okay, share where you got up the rubric.
Yeah, let's
so
see if
let's
there's a
just-
second for this motion.
I'll second it. Okay, Chris, second. Discussion?
Can someone explain this motion for me? I'm a bit confused.
Very simple. We removed for the agreement the provision that we would fire teachers as late, we could lay off teachers as late as October or November. However, we retained in the language the 30-day. The notice was only 30 days, which could contradict statute 121. According to my notes, that could contradict 118.22 and affect our notice of hiring and possibly cause contractual issues. So I was hoping to make it simpler by just taking it out completely. And therefore we could have spring layoff and surplus without the 30 days. We'd have to follow the actual contract period, which is the 1 year.
Thank you, Nikki.
Did you, we have a second so we can discuss this motion. Deirdre, did you typed in, you want to add to it?
Yeah, I just want to make a clarification. So the point of the language for the 30 days is just to be more explicit about the actual non-renewal language that is per statute, right? So right now, when you're looking at non-renewal and when we provide final notice, it is about 30 days that staff are getting final notice to the end of their contracted time. So all this language is saying is spelling it out specifically, because I think there was confusion with the board early on that a 30-day notice was something that just came out of the air somewhere. It is really specifically tied to the non-renewal language when you're looking at the final notice that somebody would get through a non-renewal process. So all it is doing is providing clarity for the board.
I just find it superfluous because we already have a statute that says how to handle exactly a surplus and layoff in the statute. The contract goes from this state to this state. This would change surplus language. We wouldn't need the 30 days if we already have it statutorily.
It's not about surplus language, Nikki. This is layoff specifically. This is layoff language that you're talking about. And all it is doing is providing specificity and clarity. That is all that it is doing. It says right there specifically in the language that we will follow the non-renewal process. So that's all it's doing. It's just providing clear language.
I just don't feel it's necessary, hence why I made the motion.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Deirdre, for that. I do want to clarify this further though, because when we talked about this in July, it was clarified to the board that layoff and non-renewal are not the same thing. And we have changed the language here to lead off with layoff instead of leading off with the state statutes around non-renewal. So I just want to make sure we're not actually changing anything in practice.
Where you
think of this is that you could put, I'm a little concerned that you could give the notice, in May, as the rule says, But then would you be able to then give 30-day notice of layoff following that at any point, as opposed to using the calendar that is set forth in 118.22, which is pretty strict, but also there's legal precedent for handbooks or collective bargaining agreements overriding that calendar. So I also don't understand why we need to change this. Like, why don't we just stick with the language that's there right now?
So in drafting this language and speaking specifically with general counsel, it was agreed that this was providing the clarity for the board. It states in there very specifically that we will follow the non-renewal process based on the statute. So, Sherry, I don't know if you want to jump in on this. I'm missing what the concern is here when we've been explicit in saying that we would follow the non-renewal process based on the statute.
I could,
So,
may
Chris, just, does that clarify things for you?
No, it's still just like would it be possible to lay off staff with 30-day notice following the May 15th deadline for non-renewal in state statute with this new language? Would that be possible? Would that happen?
That is not my interpretation. I will yield to the general counsel.
Thanks.
You asked that question again, so.
So 118.22 has a very clear calendar. It's actually, it's 30 days plus I think there's a 15-day written notice that has to be given ahead of that. And staff who are given the notice of non-renewal can ask for a meeting with the board if they have like a 5-day window. It's all pretty clearly spelled out. And the current language in the handbook basically adheres to what's in 118.22. And I'm a little concerned that the changes that are in the new language push us away from that possibly. And I just want to make sure, first of all, that all of the procedures that are laid out in 118.22 stay the way this is written right now. I think, this doesn't talk about the written notice. And secondly, the interpretation of the new language, would it be possible to give that notice that the district intends to have layoffs by the deadline that is specified in the new policy, but then give notice of layoff later, as opposed to using the calendar in 118.22? Would you be able to give a staff member a layoff notice after May 15th using this new language? Is there any chance that could happen?
No, Chris, what we're saying is, as Deirdre indicated, we're trying to be explicitly clear that we will continue to follow that language. Early on in the conversations, there was confusion about when it would happen. And part of that confusion was about the language that we've since withdrawn, which is the layoffs in September and October, because those, had they happened, we were setting out a time frame upon which staff would be notified. Leaving the 30 days in just solidifies the language that is already there. It solidifies what we already do with regard to layoff.
So I think this change is unnecessary. Like the current handbook language says that anyway. I don't think we need to change things. I think it's fine the way it is, and this seems like an unnecessary change. So I agree with Nikki. I think we could just, amend to take out the new language here, because we took out the October decision point and the current language as it stands serves the purpose we want. So.
and it is by motion on the,
So you're saying that the current language,
already does it.
Yeah, the current language does what we need it to do, so we don't need this change.
so, read your motion.
Yes.
Again, one, please.
Yes, absolutely, Madam Chair. In addendum A, section 6.2, I move to remove the revised language on notice of layoff and the 30-day provision, as well as the firing in October, but that's already been removed, so that part doesn't need to be in there.
And I've got a second for that. Does
And without
everybody-
the
all
second-
board members understand? Okay. Any further
May I
discussion?
ask a question? Nikki, you referenced the notice. You want to remove the notice as well?
I want any changes to the notice that are currently in this iteration of the draft.
Okay.
I don't know if that's actually, you already put that out.
Yeah, I already put that. Can I just change that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sherry, I'm driving you nuts, and I apologize. I'm trying here. It's been one of those weeks. But-
Okay. Does everybody understand
No, is the amendment to change to amend the language that's being proposed or to go back to the original language?
To go back to the original.
I don't think
Could
that's
I-
what you're.
Yeah, that's,
Could I try restating? what
yes,
Nikki was saying?
because obviously I stated it badly.
No, you didn't state it badly. I just wanted to, basically, I think Nikki, what you're trying to say is in addendum A 6.2, that you're moving to remove the revised language about notice of layoff.
Yep, that's it. I just got tripped up by words every now and then. When I get into legal, I kind of forget how to switch into English.
So section 6.2, remove revised language about notice of layoff.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, Commissioner?
Yeah, can I just hear from Deirdre if what she is proposing here does clarify something, I mean, after we took the October date out?
I'm sorry, Chris, can you restate your question?
Yeah, after we took the October date out.
Deirdre, if you can stay on screen along with Sherry,
It would be helpful.
because we're gonna be interacting here for a moment, so, thank you.
Just to clarify, the 30-day in the language that you have here, just going back to the original, does it mess anything up for that 30 calendar day that you put in here?
No, I think the response was that this is providing clarity for the board because there seems to be confusion on what the actual notice is in the statute. And the statute at the end of the day provides about 30 days notice when we're using the non-renewal process for layoffs. So all this is essentially doing is providing that clarity so that everybody knows that it's 30 days notice, at least, with an emphasis on at least. The board always has the discretion to provide more notice if they so chose.
Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question, Gloria?
Yes,
I'm a bit
go ahead.
confused with the resistance from my colleagues to provide clarity on a policy that is already pretty controversial.
I
To
don't
me,
think- I'm sorry.
Nikki, sorry. You know, as someone that is really fascinated by policies and the interpretations of, I always deeply appreciate when questions come up about them, which they have in our discussions, and when folks attempt to provide further clarity, and at times sounded potentially repetitive, but to really state something that could potentially be overlooked, or folks may be a bit confused with the interpretation. So I'm a bit confused about the fact that we are spending quite a bit of time on something that finds to be helpful to our staff and to us, quite frankly.
Actually, I've heard quite a bit from staff on that issue.
Okay,
I'm speaking on my motion, is that okay?
Ananda, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm confused about I understand the motion, Nikki. I'm confused about the fact that why are we spending this much time on providing further clarity on the thing that we are already stating?
Because I've heard from quite a few staff who say it actually muddied the issue. And legally, I know that the 30-day issue has been settled by statute. I think that the statute is clear to add the additional language actually would be more confusing, not less.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just add to that I think the confusion came from the multiple changes that have happened to this piece, and we're, because we aren't actually changing it now, I think it just makes sense to go back to what it was. So.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Savion?
Hey, Sherry, thank you so much for joining us. How will this motion affect the final motion?
So on this particular issue, it's the same as any other motion that you guys would make with regard to language. Because essentially you're saying we don't want to make a change to this particular part of the handbook. Even though the 30 days is not a change, it's an enhancement, but it's an enhancement that the board doesn't want.
It's an enhancement. Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, are any further discussion?
actually, but isn't enhancement actually changing? I mean, if we're enhancing something, you inherently aren't changing what the original is.
Thank you, Nikki.
We changed the word, the words are different, Nikki, but the intent is the same. It's the same, except for we laid out the specific 30 days.
Then it isn't, they can't be the same. I'm sorry, it just can't.
Okay. So we got a motion on the floor. We've had discussion, we have a second, we've had discussion. Let's do a roll call vote. Ally?
On the motion?
On the Nikki's motion.
On my,
No? Okay,
yes.
yes.
Chris Chrissy, aye.
No.
Savion, no?
Nay.
Ananda?
Nay, did Julia vote?
I'm sorry, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm nay.
I have one more.
I'm sorry, Ananda? No, yes. Ananda, what did you say?
Nay.
Nay? Okay, all right,
May I make my next motion?
not yet. We're still on this motion. Okay, so, motion fails from what
We didn't vote.
or, I'm sorry, nay.
No?
Nay to, Nikki's motion. Okay, you got it?
Yes.
The motion fails.
Right.
Okay. Nikki,
My second motion is, I believe that the rubric and the weights and everything, we're going to spend a lot of time discussing weights and seniority and cultural relevance and what's important. And these are all essential things, but if they don't live in the handbook, it means they can be changed and that the board needs to vote on the rubric itself. According to state statutes, we have the right and duty to vote on policies, draft policy, make policy, approve policy, and vote on proposals. If we don't vote on it, then we're abdicating the duty that we were elected to do. I mean, am I gonna win every vote? No.
can you make your motion, Nikki, please?
Well, I was,
And then we can have discussion.
oh, you want it that way? Sorry.
Thank you, yeah. Please make your motion.
Absolutely. I move that the rubric lie within the handbook.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second? Chris Brucey, second. Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
And very simply, when you have a rubric, you have a set of rules. Set of rules you have to be able to appeal by, a set of rules that everyone can follow, look up, and be able to affect. When you don't put those rules in the handbook, you're putting it at an unfair disadvantage because they can be changed at any time. If we have a commitment to anti-racist education, which I think we do, why would we put the decision in more principals' hands rather than less, one, on the cultural competency? That's my first point. But secondly, on this, why wouldn't we want the rubric to be set? If we're going to create and make meaningful change, we should have the rules set in the handbook so they stick. Otherwise, we just have guides. We don't have an actual policy.
Thank you. Okay, just advice from legal counsel on why, if there are any reasons that we should not have the rubric within the handbook. Any legal versions?
Sure. On the question of whether the rubrics should live within or outside the handbook, we need to look to the difference between policy and practice. Over the years, we have not always been clear about what is practice and what is policy. Practice is the how behind the policies that the board ratifies by vote. In this case, the rubric is the series of steps we're using to operationalize the handbook language changes and achieve a consistent result or output. The overall change we're looking for is improved student outcomes through the retention of our most high-quality teachers, including recently hired staff of color. The handbook language change that you're voting on is one policy that is one link in a chain of policies that would move us towards improved student outcomes. The practice is those steps that administration has indicated it is taking to ensure that your policy, the handbook language changes, are implemented with fidelity. The rubric is the tool by which the administration will train and implement organizational performance measurement, which may have to be changed from time to time to ensure that we are meeting the goals of increasing retention of our most recently hired staff, with a focus on retaining high-quality staff of color while taking into account seniority, plus the other factors that are articulated in the rubric to get to our end goal of improved student outcomes. In the simplest terms, the rubric is the evaluation tool for staff who are being considered for surplus and layoff. Just as the annual evaluation tools for all staff are not in the handbook, the rubric as such a tool should not be in the handbook.
May I respond?
Just a second. Did she answer your question?
Yes, and I have a response. That's why I want to know if I was allowed.
Go ahead.
My response also on that is, yes, we have a policy and practice mix the two. Most recently, unfortunately, was at the West High School firing of the security guard. We said we were fine with it as a practice until we had someone lose his job over something that wasn't policy, never was policy, it was practice. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back and put anyone through that twice. And I don't think that's going to help put student outcomes. Additionally, if you look at the Michigan State study, which is what I've been referencing previously, if you look at that, the majority of people, 7% of, they found over 7% stated that this was a minor issue. The majority issue, and I'm quoting it probably wrongly, and if so, please correct me because I'm bad at numbers. But what is important is this. We need our teachers to be able to teach and reach our students. We can't get our students to full potential if we don't support the teachers to teach them at the full potential. If they're in fear on surplus and layoffs, and we're including seniority at only 20%, and that amount can be changed at any time, this doesn't give our teachers much security. That worries me. Additionally, what worries me, and that now I'm moving into my comment, if I may.
So first we need to deal with the motion that's on the floor right now. Your amended motion.
Yes.
To include
Rubric.
rubric within the handbook.
Correct.
Changes, okay? So we need to stick with that and then we'll move on to broader discussion, which I'm sure that's where you're heading. So any further discussion on the motion on the floor, Julia?
Yeah, I just had a question. So if we don't accept Nikki's motion amendment, theoretically, could the district decrease seniority to a different weight of any different weight without consulting the board?
Julia, I don't know if you recall, but in the meeting, there is also at least 3 other groups that would need to look at the rubric and any changes made to the rubric before any changes would be made. Deirdre can speak a little bit more about which groups those are, but that is one way that we are trying to ensure that there are no changes that would just come out of the blue.
Yeah, I guess my concern is just that MTI's only way of kind of voicing their opinion here and is through the board. And so, I mean, I guess
they are part of one of those committees that would be reviewing this on a fairly regular basis. But again, I defer to Deirdre to respond on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Sherry. We talked about an oversight committee that would be comprised of central office, MTI leadership, teachers, students, to really work through this process. And the oversight committee will be charged with, reviewing the process, looking at data that's collected over time, and making suggestions and recommendations as we move forward on how this is working. So that's where I see the work living.
May I amend my amendment?
Just a second. Julia, did you get your question answered?
Kind of. Is there a reason why any change like that should not go through the board?
Because Julia, as I indicated, that is practice. It's similar to evaluations of other staff, their annual evaluations. At the point of when a staff would be considered for layoff or surplus, we have to have some way of determining, in addition to seniority, how we're going to choose that person. This would be their evaluation. And just as the evaluation of other staff are not voted on by the board, this is a tool and it should be treated as a tool and treated as practice.
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything. I just think it's a problem that theoretically, administrative staff. And I mean, let's be honest, I mean, in reality, like oversight groups end up being dictated by the administration, or they don't have that much power. I mean, that's just how it works. And I think it's a problem that, you know, seniority could decrease to say like 1% without the board or MTI being formally consulted.
Thank you, Julia. And so, I mean, I think, you know, I think this is a good question. I think for me, in reading my original motion was, you know, it specifically said, I move that the Board of Education adopt the modifications to the MMSD employee handbook as set forth in the documents prepared for this agenda item dated March 18th. The documents prepared includes the rubric. So that's why I am a little confused of why we specifically, you know, I'm confused about the amendment because the original amendment says that we are approving tonight the documents prepared for this agenda item.
May I?
Chris, do you want to speak on the motion?
Yeah, can I clarify that? The documents I believe that we are approving are the layoff red line and the surplus red line. Is that correct? The two documents.
Yes, that
we're
is
approving.
That is correct. The other document is the memo to the board. The board does not vote on the memos to the board. They vote on the two documents that Chris just referenced.
So it's not the rubric.
Okay, thank you. Nikki?
We have, as a board, since 2017, since I've been on there, had the board involved in making decisions. If we allow admin to unilaterally do this, I think this is a great mistake. I
Okay,
think,
so Nikki, are you speaking on the motion? Nikki,
Yeah.
please? Okay.
yeah, this is my motion and this is part of it.
Okay.
And it's very simple on why I wrote it. I wrote it very simply because the board acts when it votes to neuter the board and to not allow it to speak and to allow it to be individually changed by administration shows no consistency to future boards. It shows no precedent. By not showing that precedent, you are creating a system in which it can be abused by boards that aren't as ethical as ours. And it will cause problems in the future. Not with ours, but ones in the future. And that precedent is way too dangerous to set.
Thank you, Nikki. Chris? And then let's move for a vote.
So I feel like there's not a firm line between policy and practice. If you look at the handbook, we have things in there like salary schedules. We have things in there like pay schedule or hours worked. Like we do have some practice outlined in the handbook, and we need to. I think it makes sense to put this rubric in the handbook because that guarantees that changes to the handbook will go through the collaborative handbook process, which means we're all coming together and speaking collectively when we make changes to this rubric. And I think that there's power in that, especially since we know that this rubric isn't perfect and we know that it's going to need to be tweaked and evaluated. And I think there's power in committing to doing that through a collaborative process to work towards our goals of being an anti-racist district. So I would argue to put it in the handbook for that reason. I think it just makes the whole process stronger to do that.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? I'm happy that we got to the point of the rubric. I think that in elevating culturally responsive teaching to 40% is important. And I'm also very appreciative that the district listened to us when we wanted to elevate seniority. So this is not, just to be clear to our community, this is not eliminating seniority at all. It came to us at 10%. And I requested the increase to 20%.
But did we vote on the motion? Confused. I'm
They
sorry.
listen. Okay, we're talking about the rubric. And so, I think that the rubric should be in the handbook language. I'm in agreement with that. I think that it was a rubric that we all worked along with the administration to come up with, and I think it should be included in the handbook language. And so changes. So let's go ahead and vote. Ali, the motion is to.
Can I ask a question, Gloria, before we go to a vote?
Ananda, did you want something?
Yeah. Can someone explain to me why did we remove the rubric out of the original motion?
So it wasn't in the original motion. We're asking, we have amendment on the floor to add it to the original motion.
So I'm trying to understand the rationale of removing, because at first I thought we couldn't vote because it's in a draft format. That was what I understood. But now you're all asking, this motion is to put in a draft format the rubric back into the motion. And I'm trying to understand, why did we remove in the first place?
It was never there in the first place. I wanted to add it so that way it would be part of the process. And therefore it wouldn't be a draft because it would be in an actual handbook, so you have something to follow.
It was never another in the.
Right.
In the
So
language.
why did the administration remove the rubric out of, why is the administration not recommending, let me ask this differently. Why is the administration not recommending the rubric to be part of the documents that we're voting?
As Sherry indicated, she indicated the policy, there's a difference between policy and practice. I don't know if you want to repeat that, Sherry.
So I
Sure,
understand.
I can repeat it.
I understood that part. Sherry, can you tell me, like, are you thinking that we want to continue to have flexibility to adjust this practice, which that I would understand? Is there any other motive?
There's no motive, except for, I mean, if you think about it, at the point that we're at right now, you know, we're saying that the oversight committee would be the one that would review if there were any necessary changes. Now, let's say that there were some legislative change that we have to make a change to the rubric. This process would make it significantly more difficult because we all know how long it takes to actually get policy up to the board. And so, you know, if we needed to be nimble and make a shift, or if in the middle we realize, oh, wait a minute, that point right there, that point is not getting us where we need to be because we've reviewed, say, 4 other evaluations or 4 other layoff candidates who've gone through, and we won't be able to make that change, right? And so we'll just have to proceed as if it is what it is right then. We won't be able, because we won't have that time to go back to the board and say, you know what, we need to make this change before we finish this process. We won't be able to do that.
Right, Sherry, sorry, I used a strong language of motive, but I was really trying to get what you just said. So I wanted to introduce this new language to this conversation to say, one of the reasons that my understanding that the rubric is not part of the original motion is because it's fairly new. and it's, you know, we needed to have the committee also needs to have some flexibility to adjust that as they're implementing the practice. I think that the example, Nikki, that you used, it was a very valid example, but I think it states to the rigidity of how we implement practices and policies. And I think the intention around the original motion is to not be rigid or as rigid intentionally, so we can continue to work on an extremely important step towards what we are trying to reach. Our goals around everything that we're trying to reach is already set. The language on a handbook of what we're trying to do is already set. I think what's following that into the practice, which is an area that MMSD has often struggled to implement, often because of the rigidity, is I think is what we're discussing. So I am in support of flexibility, of really testing how this policy is going to impact our staff and our community and ultimately our students. Thank you.
Ali, Savion, and Chris.
I was just gonna explain that part of the motion, of my own motion.
You've had your time.
On my own motion?
On your own motion, and now everybody gets to speak on it. Ali has not spoken, Savion, or Chris. So Ali, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think embedding the rubric in the handbook intensifies the issue in terms of how we're having this conversation in partnership with MTI. And so we're making an additional alteration this evening to the handbook versus the guidance around how we operationalize practice. And I don't think that I'm not comfortable with that, because that's not what we, laid out in terms of what we were planning to do this evening. I don't think we've given folks a fair chance to comment on the contribution of that board memo to the handbook. And so I'm not comfortable voting for that amendment at this time.
Thank you. Ali, Savion?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, I do hope at some point we stop referencing the staff member as a talking point in our arguments. That person is much more than that one incident that transpired.
When we include the individuals with disabilities who've been fired due to disability, then we will. When we put individuals who are in wheelchairs, when we put individuals in wheelchairs on the material, then we will.
It's not fair.
Nikki?
You're right. I'm frustrated. That's right. I apologize. And Savion, I apologize to you. I sometimes let my temper get the best of me, and I do mean sincerely.
Let Savion speak.
Nikki, I can't hear when I'm so sorry, Nikki. I can't hear when two people are talking.
I was just apologizing.
That concludes my
Savion, go
comment.
ahead. Savion, you know.
Yeah, I'm done.
Chris Goldschmidt?
Yeah, I guess I'm frustrated by this conversation because I wanted to start out the evening saying I really appreciate the work that's gone into this effort to look beyond seniority as a way to make our layoff and surplus decisions. It's a monumental shift in what we're doing in the traditional way we've decided this, and the work has come a long way since last summer. We've made a lot of progress. So I do want to recognize Deirdre and MTI for the work that has been done on this. But to me, just this discussion that we're having tonight indicates that we're not ready to do this. Like I feel like we have time and space to do a little bit more work on this and come back so everybody is ready. This is the first time I've heard of the oversight committee, and I don't know if I just missed that, but I haven't heard of that piece of this process. And so I feel like I'm finding out new information as we go, and it's a little frustrating. I understand the desire to put the rubric in there. I'm concerned that the rubric's still in a draft form, so I'm not sure the way it's laid out right now is what we want to approve, with within the handbook and codify it tonight in the draft form that it's in. I'm not sure that's a good idea. And so I feel like we're kind of stuck here, debating the issues and doing the work that should be done in this collaborative process, not done by the 7 board members and Dr. Jenkins sitting at the table tonight. And so I guess that's my comments for now, and I have some more comments to make as we get further in the process, but I'm just frustrated that we're trying to do this sort of, it feels like on the fly, when it needs to be decided in another way and worked out.
Thank you for your comments. Everybody, I just want to remind everyone the amount of time that we have spent, not only as a board, the district administration along with MTI, in talking about this. This is not the first time. I laid out how much time, 70 meetings between the district leadership and MTI leadership since September 3rd, 2020. We asked them to go back and meet again and come up with an agreement. Okay, there have been 23 Friday mornings where the superintendent met 1 hour with MTI leaders. There were 20 handbook meetings from October to March. So I think, we have to really think about and keep our students at the center, particularly those students who are most impacted by this decision, right? And we have to recognize that there will never be a time when a union will come forward and give up seniority. And so we're picking this apart because of one issue that's never going to change. We will never get there. We're picking this apart, whether we incorporate the rubric or not, right? Because that's what the motion is on the floor, right? Whether we do this or not, we're gonna, if we don't vote tonight, they're going to meet again for another 50, 70 times. In the meantime, as Dr. Jenkins says, how many kids are we willing to lose in the process? Right? I mean, we are uplifting cultural responsive teaching in our classrooms in the rubric. That's important. We should be elevating that. And I think that is the direction that we need to go. And this decision is going to impact many positive movements forward. The retention, right? We have a lot of work to do. This is not the only issue, right? This is not the only strategy. This is part of a bigger strategy in moving our district forward and ensuring that we are committed to Black excellence, as we talked about earlier today, and committed to not continuing to fail our Black students. And so the motion on the floor is to include the rubric into this decision tonight. So I'm going to reread this and then we're going to vote. I move that the Board of Education adopt a modification to the MMSD employee handbook to include the rubric, in the documents prepared for the agenda item dated March 18, 2021. We got a second from Chris Carusi. That was Nikki's motion. And Julia, your advisory vote.
Gloria, yeah, Julia had a hand up to speak, and I think Sherry did too.
Okay. Julia, and then Sherry, did you have a clarifying? Did you want to type in?
I was just going to say, I think
I did, but Julia can go first.
Oh, thank you. I think if we don't accept Nikki's motion here, we're voting to give full jurisdiction on life criteria for the foreseeable future to district administration and the oversight committee. And that's completely cutting off the board and MTI. So we're not going to have discussions like this in the future. It's just going to be the district administration. And I think that's a bad move for MTI and collaboration and all that stuff. So I to Nikki's motion from me.
Julia, it's hard to hear you. I'm sorry.
Should I speak louder? Could you hear all of that?
Yeah, louder, please. Thank you.
Okay. I was just saying, if we don't accept Nikki's amendment, I think we're voting to give, full jurisdiction on layoff criteria for the whole foreseeable future to district administration and these oversight committees. And I think that's something that completely cuts off both the board and MTI, because that's their only way of speaking. And I think that's a bad move. So I'm definitely in favor of Nikki's motion.
Okay, Sherry?
I want to make two clarifying points. So I'm looking at the documents prepared for the board meeting tonight. They indicate that the rubric is a draft sample. Are we voting on the draft sample is my question, because then we're voting to put a draft sample in the handbook. That's number one. Number two, I want to correct the perception that MTI will not be involved if this is not in the handbook, because as Deirdre said, they will be a part of the oversight committee. And as a part of the oversight committee, they will have part in any changes that need to be made to this rubric.
So I think that, the Nikki's amendment, and as I read it, it's not necessarily saying the sample rubric.
Can we vote on, do we have permission as a board to vote on rubrics in general?
Is that a question that you want to?
That was what I meant by the motion, but I probably phrased it about as badly as I could.
Okay, Chris, do you have something else?
I want to echo what Ms. Schmidt said. I've never seen this language about the oversight committee. I'm wondering where it lives. Or where I missed it.
The oversight committee we shared that information in several of the documents that we shared with the board over the last 2 weeks since March 8th. It was in the FAQ, and I believe it was in 2 follow-up documents that clearly delineated the oversight committee and who was going to be a part of that oversight committee, which included central office, MTI leadership, teachers, etc. So it was in documents that was shared with you all. It was something that was explicitly shared in the operations work group meeting. I addressed it specifically in there. So it is not codified in the handbook language, but it is in the documents that you've had that I've shared with you over the last month.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
And this is Nikki's motion. Aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Ali?
Nay.
Nay?
Aye.
Chris, aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Another?
Nay.
Gloria, nay. Motion fails. Okay, back to the original motion. I move that the Board of Education adopt the modification to the MMSD employee handbook as set forth in the documents prepared for the agenda item dated March 18, 2021, effective July 1st, 2021.
Okay.
Ali, second. Discussion? Ali and then Crystal Schmidt.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that there is a racialized dynamic that's part of this conversation, and it's part of this greater conversation as we have it as a nation and as a community. And I think part of reconciling what we're talking about is acknowledging there are certain people whose identities are well represented within our faculty. That, there are certain people who can see themselves reflected every step of the way when it comes to academia. However, I went to school here. And I never had an African-American teacher. And that is something that I think we have to shift, and we have to shift through change and through active change. And I believe in the process and the work that both MTI and our administration, and particularly Dr. Jenkins, have done to move us to this place. And this has not been a short process, but it has been a process that has been highly involved and that the board has been able to contribute to for months now. And so I'm surprised at the lack of preparedness to some extent that we seem to be discussing this evening. And I am surprised by the lack of conviction around changing processes that have resulted in our Black faculty being the last hired and the first hired, and that being something that we are obligated to interrupt, to change, and steer in another direction. So I hope that we can have this conversation moving forward in good faith with one another.
Thank you, Ally. Principal Mishman?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the fact that, we've gotten a lot of feedback on this, and I just want to thank everyone from the community who's reached out to share their perspective on this. I think this is a more nuanced issue than just simply, if you vote yes, you support equity, and if you vote no, you support maintaining the status quo. I think it's more nuanced than that. I support the seniority plus changes, where more factors are considered in addition to seniority, but there's still important implementation details to be worked out, and our discussion tonight shows that. I believe more time is needed to find agreement closer to consensus. I suggest we continue the collaborative process so the end date for the approval of this by the board is dictated by the final collaborative product and not a timeline that we set. I just don't think this is ready. And we have the time and momentum to do this right.
I just need to speak. Yes. Does race play a factor in hiring? Absolutely. Is this an issue? Absolutely. There's one autistic individual on a school board in the whole damn nation. That's me. And I'll be damned if I am chastised and told I have a racialized agenda because of people who look like me when there's no one else like me on the dang country on the board. That's not okay, and that's not respect either. I respect you, Ally. I see you as a friend, but that crosses the line that I cannot and will not accept.
Nikki?
I need to say this.
Comments to the entire board, and we are not going to get into the space of attacking one
I
another.
just got
We
being
all have
told
a
that we are part of a racialized process. It isn't. And I'm not going to sit here and be called that.
That is Ali's perspective, Nikki. Now say your comments and then we'll.
And this is my perspective. I'm not going to sit around and be called that. I've worked my butt off on anti-racism.
Nikki, I'm not calling you anything.
I'm saying the process, and I feel that
Nikki,
way.
I was speaking both to a historical reality and a national reality.
And
I wasn't speaking to you as an individual, but you are speaking to me.
As a
And
historical.
I'm gonna respond.
Call to
And
order.
that's fair.
We are not gonna go back and forth on the floor like this. Please respect the process, and we're not going to go back and forth on this now. Nikki, finish, and then we'll move on.
Very simply, I feel that the ableism also needs to be addressed, and I'm worried that with no disability piece on this rubric, and no piece that discusses how we will monitor individuals with disabilities and those who teach them who could get lower scores, that we are leaving out an entire class of people. That terrifies me. That we leave out English language learners because we don't talk about teachers who necessarily are ELL. That's also a major flaw. If we're gonna do it right.
Thank you, Nikki. Fabian?
If I may add, I do believe that within the rubric, we do have language proficiency. So that is addressed in there. And we also have academic credentialing, which also I believe includes special education. But also, it's just, sorry. I believe that the most important form of intelligence in the world today is cultural intelligence. And when we have these debates over objectivity versus subjectivity, it's important to note that our current conceptions of objectivity and of merit have traditionally favored the dominant culture, which has exerted power over other cultures historically. There's another component of this debate in terms of the barriers erected to the education profession for Black and brown individuals. We have to deal with that historical reality. Now, the conversation about how we diversify teachers in America, it's got to be an all the above approach. I don't think this is a silver bullet, but I am personally ready to get ready and moving. I'm ready to act on this. I'm ready to act on all the other things we have to do. And I encourage us to do that, no matter our vote tonight. So my vote is green.
Hey, anybody, Chris Lucy?
Thanks, Gloria. So I appreciate that everybody is speaking their truth. I think that's important, and I think we all need space to do that. So thanks for providing that opportunity, Gloria. I think we have a lot of common ground in this room. A lot of common ground. I think we all agree that we need to ensure that our staff of color, and particularly if new staff of color, feel welcome, that they feel like they belong, that they feel like they aren't going to be moved around. I think nobody thinks the status quo is okay. I think we all agree on the need to center our students. I think we all agree on the need for culturally responsive teaching. And I think we all agree that we as a board have a responsibility to look at policies through an anti-racist lens, because that's the most powerful tool that we have to be an anti-racist board. I think it's good to state all that common ground, because I think we have more in common than we have that divides us. I think that's really important to acknowledge. Job protections like seniority and tenure, this is not anything new that we're doing. I mean, these have long been singled out as a core problem in public education. And if you look at places like the New Orleans Recovery School District, they basically fired their entire teaching or laid off their entire workforce, rehired without seniority as a lens, and it ended up reducing diversity in the New Orleans public schools. So it's not a panacea, it's not a silver bullet. It's a tool that we're looking at MMSD, but I think we have to acknowledge that this may not lead us to the end that we want to get to. At the end of the day, we are trying to support our new staff of color, and that's really important. We're also doing that by reducing job security. We haven't seen any data on layoff and surplus, particularly if we could see it correlated to staff retention, to actually get a sense from data if this is going to work or not, and that concerns me. I do appreciate the retention data that we were given, but we haven't been given any surplus data related to staff of color, or any information about if we know if there's any kind of a correlation between surplus in particular, because I don't think we've really had many layoffs, and retention. I think we also need to acknowledge that job security and strong unions are good for children and the staff who teach them and serve them. Job security protects people who otherwise might face retribution for calling out injustices or inequities or other issues with working conditions in our schools. As one of our speakers attested, many MMSD staff are already afraid to speak up in some of our buildings. We do have a culture in MMSD where many of our staff of color don't feel safe speaking up about things that they see. And I think we need to make sure that if we move ahead with changes, that we're actually trying to protect people who speak out against problems and try to make things better in this district. There's scant evidence that professional development successfully addresses implicit bias, and yet we're saying we're going to give our principals PD, and that will take care of any biases that might come into play with implementing this rubric. I'm concerned that that's not going to work in every building with every principal who does these evaluations. And I'm particularly concerned about the possibility of many of our women staff, which is the bulk of our staff, possibly, if they threaten a strong male leader in their building, they could get a little rating. And those kinds of biases come into play, and I think we have to be sensitive as we look at these rubrics that we're making sure that discrimination doesn't happen inadvertently because of the subjectivity here. Retention of staff, particularly staff of color, is a growing problem in this district. And I deeply appreciate, Deirdre, that you have called out that this is a multifaceted problem and this one change isn't going to take care of it. I'm really concerned, however, that making this unilateral handbook change sets a negative precedent for working collaboratively with MTI and with the administration towards our goal of being an anti-racist district. This is the first time that this board will make a unilateral change to the handbook, and I'm worried it's it could become a precedent to continue to make changes without MTI and without admin, and without parents and students acting as a team together to try to get to our goals as a district. And I think we need to be really conscious of the fact that we're making a very strong decision here about equity, but we're also breaking precedent in terms of working in solidarity and as a team with our staff and with their parent and with others. Right now, that's not the case, but right now we're not working in solidarity with our opinion. And that concerns me as we move forward on other really important changes and issues in this district that will help us move towards our goals of anti-racism. We've been told that we will not reach agreement with MTI, and I disagree with that. I know that we've had multiple meetings with MTI. I've heard different things about how many of those meetings are actually very much focused on the surplus and layoff language versus more general handbook conversations. I really believe that we need to build on the collaborative handbook process that was put in place years ago and use that strong foundation to work together for change. I am concerned that moving forward unilaterally works against that need. And therefore, I will be voting against these unilateral changes to the teacher handbook as much as I agree that we can't continue with the status quo. I disagree with the process.
Thank you, Ms. Sabian. Did you have?
Thank you. Yeah, on the issue of job protection, I really do understand that concern, especially if you are an older staff, who happen to be Black or brown, and you're outspoken and seniority has protected you. What if you're young, staff of color, and outspoken, and you're subject to surplus every year because of random fluctuations in student enrollment? What job security do you have? Also, this helps us with one of the most important strategies of retaining staff of color, which is clustering folks at specific schools. But if we have a surplus process that's basically only on seniority, then if you're a staff of color that's clustered at a school where you feel part of that welcome environment, and you get surplus to a school that's maybe not as good, what does that do to your career trajectory? Do you want to stay with this district? So I feel like this process, this change, will give us more power to strategize on how we build supportive environments at specific schools. Do we have uneven building leadership? Yes, we do, but we can take that problem on as well in terms of holding principals accountable. So I think we have to wade into this. Humans have, on the issue of objectivity and subjectivity, humans have the hour of discernment and to exercise judgment. That's what we're going to have to do, especially when it comes to waiting out these oppressive cultures and systems that impact our children. We have to wade into this. So.
Thank you, Sabian. Fernando?
President Gloria, I wanted to first share my immense gratitude from the work that Deidre and Sherry and the entire team have done to get to where we are now. Certain things that I have heard my colleagues say that they haven't seen were things that we actually asked them to do, and they have done. So it feels confusing to me that we're still sort of teasing so many things apart. I wanted to agree with my colleague Nikki. It is extremely hurtful to be someone that is the only person, right? I'm sure it is really hurtful to anyone that has been the first on anything, the first woman, the first person of color, the first Black person, the first person with disability. So I sympathize with that, Nikki. And I do find that to be a pretty compelling argument that you have. There are other arguments, there are other oppressions that are being played out, specifically to with us in our board. Gloria was elected the first Latina on the board when so many of our students identify with the same identity as her. We were the first or only school board in the entire state of Wisconsin, and probably one of the few in the entire country that were all led by women. So we know a thing or two about being one and being tokenized or being sort of made into an exemplary. What is also really interesting is that currently our leadership, both in the board, with Dr. Jenkins, the team, and HR, and now with MTI, we will have the Blackest leadership of all times in Madison. And it's extremely exciting to see. And it comes with what we're experiencing now. This challenge of speaking to racialized dynamics and not having a common language to speak to those things. We also have a legacy to having trusted mostly white leadership, both at the board level and to the district level, which has led us to be in deep-rooted inequities that we see in our data so much that have numbed so many people, that so many folks now see numbers and not see that there are so many children that this district has failed. I want to speak to the horror stories that I shared as a mother in this district, that many people that look like me share in the district, many other parents of color, many other Black parents have experienced in our district, and how those injustices will continue to live because we haven't had the courage or the capacity to address them when the time was done. I have also heard many terror stories from staff of color and teachers of color. Wanted to remind you all, I was a staff of color in the central office not that long ago. So I have my own terror stories. I also have, I hold dear so many stories of so many teachers that were not only just not supported by central office, but also their own union. And so let me just talk a little bit about the union, because our union has also shifted quite a bit. I think the union that we have in 2021 is a very, very different union that we had in 2011. And that says a lot. Still, all the things that we are proud of to be accomplishing today or be who we are today still have the sort of the nostalgia perhaps, or the rooted, the deep roots of the pervasiveness of white supremacy. And that is also something to be said.
Yeah.
The aim for perfectionism, which I have heard a little bit before in this meeting and in other meetings, is deeply rooted into this practice. I appreciate folks wanting to get things to the as right as possible to our students and as right as possible to our staff. But it's important to know that that is a whiteness. It's a symptom of whiteness, and we're not going to get to that perfection tonight, and we're not going to get to the addressing all the inequities tonight, as Deidre has reminded us over and over again. To the languages that have been used around unilateral decision, and through even language that we were uprooting what Scott Walker have started, which is language that I'm extremely familiar as someone that has had mischaracterization of my intentions to run for this office in 2013. That narrative that was also supported by many MTI staff and many MTI leadership staff is also at play in this conversation. I think that when groups of people don't reach consensus, which is a really, really hard thing to accomplish, and then one group decides to move something forward, it's not a unilateral decision. It's just to say we haven't been able to meet consensus, but here's is our best a recommendation based on the many discussions that we have. And that's the fact that has happened in this situation, given the data that we have seen. I also wanted to talk about our ability to get into this change. It's not an easy space to be. It's extremely new dynamic for many of us. Many of us have never followed leadership of color, and we have the first Latina as our president. Many of us have not taken the credentials of Black staff as something to be valued, instead to be questioned. That has happened also both in many comments from what we have heard, and it has played out in the staff. I wanted to state again that I'm in full support of this amazing leadership that is forming, that has formed, both with all of you, my colleagues, and also what we have put forward in as a district. And I know we are not making everything right with our MTI staff. And so there's so many opportunities for what is really a true collaborative approach. We haven't reached that place. Collaboration is not just something that happens when we need to make a decision. Collaborate is an ongoing practice, so we haven't got to that place. Supporting our staff is not just when we are going and voting for salary increases or this and that. Supporting our staff is supporting our staff, and it's also acknowledge how so many staff has not been supported, in particular our staff of color in our district. I am for change. I don't know if every change that we're going to make and what we're going to vote, and I can't guarantee that all of them are not going to have an unintended consequence. And I wanted to continue to talk in those terms. What are some of the unintended consequences for our votes tonight and the things that we're going to continue to make decision on, because they exist. Ableism, racism, white supremacy is deeply rooted in everything that we talk about. And that's important for all of us to acknowledge, and that we should not be afraid to say that, because we cannot change. And I shared that with Michael Jones earlier today. We cannot change something that we don't deeply know about. And acknowledging that the space that we are is important for us to get to that change. Thank you so much, President Reyes, for your leadership on this and your leadership throughout your entire term. I'm extremely humbled to be serving with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins, and your entire team for your bold moves. And I really appreciate taking a little bit of more time to express the deep gratitude for all this work, and also where we are, this complicated, conflictuous time that we are. And I trust that we're going to continue to move forward in order to support our students in centering their lives, their hearts, their brilliance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ananda, for your words and your compassion, and just centering us on what is so important, on why, I'm really just bringing us back to our why we have gone down this road. And so I appreciate your words. Chris, did you have something else? I saw you there. Chris Flumishman.
Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Jenkins for your bold leadership. Since you have been here, we are moving in the right direction. Like I said, we have made progress on this, and I am more optimistic than you, Gloria. I feel like there is room for more collaboration and more progress to be made on this. I guess my clarifying question for Deirdre is, we've already approved temporary surplus language for this year. So are the changes that we make today going to affect what happens for next year for surplus?
Sorry, this language change that you have before you is meant to be effective July 1 of 2021. So it will impact surplus and layoff for the next school year?
So it won't impact what we're doing this spring for either our May deadline or we've already moved through the surplus process
Correct.
for this year. Okay. Then from my perspective, I feel like we do have a little bit more time to get to consensus, and that's why I'm having a struggle with this, because I feel like there is more room and more time to work out some of the details on this.
Thank you, Chris. And then just to clarify that, you know, I appreciate all the work that MTI has done. They themselves have moved significantly compared to the MTI that I remember around their anti-racism work. When I said that, I'm not as optimistic about them moving forward on seniority as a membership. Seniority, I know as being a former union member, it is very, very important. And I think if we haven't gotten there yet, after all this time, even the 10%, 20%, even 50%, like if we would have, you know, come to 50%, you know, it was time. And seniority is really the challenge here. And I just don't think that any more time would have gotten and moved us around seniority. And so that was why I'm not optimistic in us getting that. And I think we're still going to go around in circles and talking about seniority. And I think, you know, I mean, really, I think Chris Brucey said that we all want the same thing, right? And it's just getting there, right? I mean, some of us are focused on process, some of us want more time. But what this board has done and has done really well at is moved during and made some significant changes during some critical times. And it's not always going to be, it is when we're breaking through systems, you know, this is what it looks like. It's messy, right? It's not going to be perfect. When we are tackling these historical systems rooted in racism, it's going to be messy. And so I think moving forward, you have to recognize that as a board, we're not always going to agree. But what we're doing is not working. And we have to really recognize and look at the data of our Black kids, the Black and brown kids, and keep them at the center, right? While also supporting and ensuring that we are promoting the diversity of teachers and staff within our schools, right? Because we know that by research that helps. And so we just need to really keep that at the center in all the decisions that we make. And so I think we had a really robust conversation. Thank you, everybody, for really being true to your thoughts and yourselves and bringing everything to the table. And we're going to go for a vote. First, I see your hand up.
I have a quick question before we vote. My question is for Dr. Jenkins, and Dr. Jenkins, this question is just a heartfelt question. It isn't meant, and if you can't answer it today, it's totally okay. But as I said before, I firmly believe that admin, MTI, and the board need to move together in our mission to become an anti-racist school district. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about how we can improve the collaborative handbook process moving forward, so we're never again in the position of having to make unilateral changes to achieve that goal.
I think that's a fair question. I think in order to answer it, we have to be really willing to go and reflect deeply, even while we're here. I think all the comments that you guys have made lead to it. I think day one in the interview, I talked about the historical wrong. And I talked about it on the campaign trail when we did the referendum. There are historical wrongs to African Americans, Latinx, special needs, poor white children, and ELL children. I think this conversation says we all want to get there. I've had a conversation with MTI, and let me tell you, I'm a big union supporter. They know that. We honored that through increasing the percentage. there for seniority. And I think in order for us to get there and go forward, we have to date. The dating is one way. And we have to wrestle with those things that we don't like about one another and that are historically wrong, that continue to perpetuate really anti-Blackness, which began with the inception of this country. And we have to talk about it. We're gonna have to live in truth moving forward. And there are gonna be times where we all are uncomfortable. Do you think I wanna come in and be in this space? But when I looked at Madison, because I was perfectly fine, Madison said, we're gonna focus on Black children and youth, ensuring that they excel. You look across the country, that is unique. And I asked when I came here, I said, are we gonna be an anti-racist district for real? Because that was what was professed. And I said, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? That means doing some tough work. We will survive this. I'm gonna walk with MTI and with the board and with this community after whatever happens. And I think us coming back to the table, Chris, after this, there will be more tough decisions. We have years of this level of thinking that has truly programmed us all to a way that we've come accustomed to. And if we're gonna dismantle it, we're gonna have to be willing to value all human beings. I'm sitting here still frustrated tonight about the attack on the Asian Americans in our country. And we all should be frustrated, just outraged. I'm talking about the LGBTQ community, particularly African Americans, are attacked like at levels you would not believe. We should all be outraged. So what is it gonna take? It's gonna take us looking one another face to face, sitting down and agreeing. We're not coming out until we can agree, but agreeing isn't going one way. And sometimes I feel a bit insulted being a teacher at heart. You know, we have to work together, but I'm really concerned about our children. We're in a state with the #1, and if you want to say it, disparities, and not just disparities in academic outcomes, but when you start looking at our birth rate for our African-American children, what happens here with healthcare, and I think us sitting down, Chris, and really saying, are you committed to doing this and being an anti-racist individual? Are you really committed to saying whatever privilege that you may be given, be it at birth, or be it acquired wealth, or be it whatever choices you've made, that if I'm a human being, you're a human being, and we're gonna treat you as such. So I'm willing to sit down tomorrow. I will cancel my schedule, okay, and talk to MTI or whomever, but I also say we can get better when we include parents in the community in our discussion. And that's how we continue to dismiss. Our children are not performing. Our children are not performing how they could perform. And they're not gonna be social, emotionally, mentally healthy if we continue with this divisiveness. I sit here and I feel bad. I heard Julia comments, and her comments almost broke my heart more than any. You know, I want you all to reflect on her comments when we leave. And that shows you where we need to go, through the lens of a child, not the adults. That's what I believe.
Thank you. All right, Julia, your advisory vote.
I'd like to just say something before my vote if I can.
Go ahead, if you can just speak up.
Yeah, can I say something before my vote?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone who's spoken on this. I think everyone has good intentions here. And the student voice is important here. And I have talked to a lot of students about this issue from different schools, different backgrounds. And a lot of them, I think almost every student has recognized the importance of getting away from that 100% seniority as a criterion. But all the students I've talked to also have pretty significant problems with this rubric, ranging from it being an effective way of measuring teachers and from learning goals and having district administrators go in and watching teachers being the best way to, measure whether or not they should be laid off. And I I think from that, I mean, there's a lot of, individual things here that everyone's discussed a lot already. So I'm not going to go through them all, but most of the students I have talked to don't like this rubric. And I think because the board just kind of signed away all opportunities we might have to address these criteria in the future and sign them away to the oversight committee, which I don't think we've had really enough time to talk about. So I'm not going to be able to support that, just because the students I've talked to don't like the rubric as it is, and the board's not going to have the opportunity to revisit it. So I wish that was different, but yeah. So that's what I have to say for my vote, nay.
Okay, your vote nay?
Yep.
Okay. So roll call vote, Ali?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nikki, nay? Chris?
Nay, Chris.
Chris, nay?
Sabian, I.
Sabian, aye.
Chris, nay.
Chris, nay. Ananda?
Aye.
Ananda, aye, and Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Okay, next we are going to move on to the consent agenda. We'll go ahead and read the main motion and then ask if there are any separations. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the March 22nd, 2021 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board. Can I get a second?
Second.
Sabian, second. Okay, any separations? Chris?
I'd like to separate 10.14.
10.14. Any others?
10.15.
10.15. Any others? Okay. Separate 10.14, 10.15. Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All right, all those in favor, let's do a roll call. Ali?
Aye.
Aye. Nikki?
Aye.
Nikki, aye.
Aye, Chris.
Chris, aye.
Aye.
Sabian, aye.
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Aye. Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Okay, let's go to 10.14. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure of funds for the city of Madison Parks to lease space to MMSD at the Olin Park building located at 328 East Lakeside Street, Madison, consisting of the entire west wing of building at 18,440 square feet plus 1,239 square feet. In the east wing for a total of 19,679 square feet with a 400,000 capital contribution and an estimated annual lease amount between 65,000 and 150,000 over a potential 25-year term. Can I get a second? Chris, Brucey, second, and discussion. Go ahead, Chris.
So the reason I pulled this is first, it's a really exciting opportunity and I want to make sure we lift it up. We've found a facility to move MSCR into when we move out of Hoyt. And it's right on the water and it's beautiful. And I was wondering if somebody could just say a few words about the fact that even though we have added a rental expense for a new facility for MSCR, how this might open up new opportunities for both our community to enjoy all that MSCR has to offer and also to possibly generate some revenue from new activities and opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I see Janet just turned her screen on, so I will defer to our amazing leader. Hey, Janet, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks for the question. MSCR has done a really good job of serving most of the community, not so much South Madison. And I think that this new location is an opportunity for us to do a better job of serving a part of Madison that we traditionally haven't done a great job of serving. So we're excited about that opportunity. In terms of fundraising,
there will be a need to do some fundraising in order to bring the facility to exactly where MSCR needs it to be over the next few years. And look forward to conversations with that moving forward with my team and with Kelly and the board.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else?
Yes, I do want to echo Chris's sentiment, and I also want to thank Kelly for her work in creating this partnership with the city. I think this is exactly kind of the work that we want to see the district and the city doing, in which we're utilizing the parks and the lake and providing pretty tremendous opportunities for our young people in collaborating across government bodies. So thank you so much for your work, Kelly. And thank you to everybody on the city side of this who has really found a way to, you know, do what's best for our entire community while supporting our young people and centering our young people.
All right. Okay. Julia, your advisory board.
Aye.
Julia, aye. Ollie?
Aye.
Ollie, aye. Nikki?
I enthusiastically.
Nikki, aye. Chris? Aye. Chris, aye. Savion?
Aye.
Savion, aye. Chris Schmidt?
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Aye. And Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Thank you all. 10:15. I move that the Board of Education approve a purchase of 30 tents to create flexible outdoor. This is the one?
Yes.
Flexible tents to create flexible outdoor elementary school classrooms from Matthews Tent Rental in the amount of $77,506,050 with I'm sorry, 77,500, I mean, 77,000, oh my God, I said, 506,150 with funding from the 2020-21 Building Service Local COVID-19 budget. That would have been a lot of
Second.
sense. Ally, second? Chris?
Yes, I just wanted to pull this out to highlight the creative problem solving around needing flexible outdoor spaces for learning. And thank you for figuring this out for the elementary schools. I would like to encourage us to look to do this at our middle schools and our high schools as well. As we bring back co-curriculars, other activities that are going on in our schools, we're also going to need more spaces. Whether you're thinking of music or theater or all the things that happen in our school buildings, it would provide more spaces. So in addition to approving this, I'm just going to encourage us to look further towards doing it for middle school and high school too. And I don't know if Chad can speak to if that's possible or not.
You have a specific question for Chad?
Yeah.
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school. And thank you, Chad.
Yeah, you're welcome. I can certainly speak to that. Kelly and I went back and forth with Janet on this proposal. And we can still have some tents this summer if we decide to go in that direction. The fact that we're going to own these assets and we'll have to store them and in the future likely, enable our grounds crew to set them up and take them down on an annual basis and still have to kind of just do a district-wide assessment to figure out where they go. Ended up in a spot that we thought this was a good place to start. So Chris, to your point, it is a starting point and we'll certainly take your feedback into consideration and certainly think that there are other locations throughout the district that will make for, advantageous for outdoor learning spaces. So thank you for the feedback.
All right, thanks, Chad.
All right, Julia.
Yeah, I just want to speak to the fact that we have talked about play-based learning and outdoor learning a lot. I have definitely asked that be part of our plan for reopening, so I'm incredibly grateful to see this. I'm also grateful to see this echo some of what we're doing with MSCR in terms of ecologically relevant experiences for our learners. So thank you, Chris, for pulling this and speaking to expanding it. at the middle school and high school level.
All right, Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye. Holly.
Aye.
Aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris.
Aye.
Chris, aye. Vivian.
Aye.
Vivian, aye. Chris Goldschmidt.
Aye.
Chris Goldschmidt, aye. Amanda.
Aye.
Aye. Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Other reports to the board. City of Madison Education Committee.
Thank you so much, President Reyes. I'm really excited to inform that that committee is getting a lot of energy. We have narrowed down our priorities and really proposed to focus on what we're calling a bucket of work that we're calling digital equity, that's going to create a comprehensive, intentional partnership with city and the county. And Alder Evers is proposing that committee to actually be a task force that's going to be sort of continue the work that the Digital City Committee has begun, to making sure that every part of our city, students and families can access services, which is really exciting. Alder Evers have requested a recommendation to serve in that committee, a school board member, and I'm putting forward the name of Savion Castro, our dear esteemed colleague, due to the fact that he's sharp on policies and can make sort of a weave between the work of the committee and also the work that he's being developed from the policy level. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ananda. Student Senate.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight the work of the Student Senate Anti-Racism Committee, which has been working on analyzing their survey responses with the help of the district's research team. So they put out a survey based on students' perception of inclusiveness of curriculum and students' sense of belonging in classes and how they believe that teachers perceive them. So they're working on getting those results and they're very excited about that. So just wanted to highlight them.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I'm sorry.
Sorry?
Laura. Who's got that? Is that Vicky?
I didn't, MSCR is not meeting until we can meet in person because the virtual, it's not working as well. So Janet and I have decided along with the group that we will start meeting, I believe June is when our first meeting is scheduled.
Good, thank you. All right, other business. Tax incremental district, TID number 36. I move that the Board of Education direct Chris Carusi as the board representative on the Tax Incremental Finance Board to vote in support of TID number 36, Capital Gateway.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Nikki, second. Discussion. Chris, you want to explain more?
Yeah, I'd be happy to explain a little bit. Just in very, very broad terms, this amendment to TID 36 frees up some of the tax increment to pay for the new public market that will be in this TID. I think the cons to the board is that it extends the life of the TID, which means it's going to be longer until the property comes back on the tax rolls. I think about 9 years longer. However, there's many, many pros to this proposition. The public market will add to the value of the property. It's going to create a business incubator that will benefit many, many members of our community who are interested in food businesses, in particular, and sustainable food businesses. It will provide a certified kitchen, small business support. It's a great opportunity for families in our district to start businesses and jobs around food. It's also an opportunity for students in the district to be able to use the facility to do the same thing, to learn about food as a way to generate income, to learn how to work with food, to learn about a food business. So I think despite the fact that the land will be off the tax rolls a little bit longer, the pros far outweigh the cons. So there's many more details in the memo, and Kelly can also answer, if you really want to know the details about the increment difference and things like that.
I
Happy
really
to
like
answer
that.
questions.
I like that business declare.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think this is an excellent opportunity for the school district to support the public market. I was actually in the mayor's office when Mayor Paul Sullivan initiated the planning of the public market. And it's definitely needed, and for all the reasons that you outlined in support of small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and it's just brings so much to our community and to our city. And so I'm happy that we're able to provide support to the city to initiate this. So thank you, Chris, for your work and your recommendation. And Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye. Ali?
Aye.
Ali, aye. Nikki?
Aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savian?
Aye.
Savian, aye. Chris Schmidt?
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Aye. Amanda, Gloria, aye. Motion passes. School breakfast program resolution. I move that the Board of Education approve a proposed resolution urging the Wisconsin State Legislature to support annual funding for statutory reimbursement to participating school districts in the school breakfast program at 15 cents per breakfast as set forth in the document prepared for the regular meeting of the Board of Education dated March 22nd, 2021.
Second, Nikki Mandarin.
Nikki, second.
Yep.
Any discussion? Chris?
I think this is really important. I'm enthusiastic about supporting it, and I want to give my wholehearted thanks to Irene Polish for bringing this forward to us. Thank you so much for making sure that feeding our kids and being able to pay for better quality food for our kids is part of our agenda. So happy to advocate for this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to Irene Polish, MMSD lead cook at Plum Road and president-elect of SNA Wisconsin for sending us this resolution. If passed, you will send this on to our local legislators along with the other districts passing the resolution. Madison is the 4th school district to vote on the resolution so far. So thank you for your work, Irene. Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Julia, aye. Ali?
Aye.
Ali, aye.
Aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savian?
Aye.
Savian, aye. Chris Schmidt?
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Ananda, aye. And Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Self-insured workers' compensation resolution. I move that the Board of Education approve a proposed resolution reestablishing the MMSD self-insured workers' compensation program as set forth in a document prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated March 22nd, 2021.
A second.
Chris Carusi, second. Any discussion? Hey, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Julia, aye. Ali?
Aye.
Ali, aye. Nikki?
Aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savian?
Aye.
Savian, aye. Chris Schmidt?
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Ananda, aye. And Gloria, aye. Motion passes. West High School project and fundraising. Motion number 1, there are 3 motions here. So let's start with 1. Putting students in schools at the center. I move to align all school and any related complementary facilities, referendum projects funded by fundraising campaigns or district resources onto a uniform fundraising timeline. Therefore, be it resolved that all previously approved fundraising campaigns and future approved fundraising campaigns, along with any internally funded efforts at the schools, will henceforth have a fundraising milestone check-in with the board in June 2021, and that all funds for all facility projects above and beyond referendum funded projects are to be secured by September 6th, 2021.
Second.
Ollie, second. Any discussion on this? Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Julia, aye. Ollie?
Aye.
Ollie, aye. Nikki?
Aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savion?
Aye.
Savion, aye. Chris Schmidt?
Aye.
Chris Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Ananda, aye. And Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Motion number 2. I move that the Board of Education accept a project proposal from West High School to 1, accept plans to upgrade the athletics facilities to add a new recreational indoor running track, expanded athletics addition, and exercise physical activity space above and beyond the investments and commitments approved through the 2020 facility referendum proposal. 2, accept through pre-approval of up to $5 million in donations through the Foundation for Madison's Public Schools no later than September 6th, 2021. And this action is taken based on the understanding that West Fundraising must meet the fundraising milestone with cash in hand in order for the project to continue by the deadlines noted in the attached presentation materials for the regular meeting dated March 22nd, 2021. Can I guess Chris Carusi, second. Discussion? Chris Schmidt?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we can hear a little bit from Karen on how this has changed in the proposal that initially came from us. And just wanted to say that I appreciate the reflection and going back to the community and coming back at us with what seems like sort of a scaled down and more, I don't want to say more reasonable, but yeah, a different proposal.
I can talk to this. I'm going to move away from remarks. It's a late evening. So I'm just going to say this is what we did. We took a look at maximizing our existing space. We looked at feasibility. We looked at cost. We looked at the impact for the region community. We looked at the impact for the communities outside region across the city. We also looked at how this particular facility, the addition of the expanded athletic addition via a suspended running track, elevator, stairwells, and the bonus room really maximize the space that has been already provided by the 2020 referendum. We looked very, very carefully. We're happy to talk about, and I would like to talk about what we eliminated and why. But in this particular in this particular instance, we believe it really maximizes our potential to increase instructional, athletic, and recreational space. And Alicia, if you want to talk a little bit about the equity aspects of this with respect to space utilization by our students in the community.
Yeah, I had a hard time hearing this.
Are you having a hard time hearing me?
Now I can hear you. A minute ago, I couldn't.
Okay, I turned it over to Alicia Pelton, who's in Arizona and has been driving around the desert. So I'm hoping she landed. Alicia, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent.
Thanks, Karen, Dr. Baran. But so after spending the last few months investigating the best use of space, I too, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I am. I found a spot. Hey, I am here. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yeah, am I good now?
Yes.
Okay, so after spending the past few months investigating the best use of space, I too believe the diligence of the MMSD staff and the architects have reached a really creative and effective design of every inch of the last of West potential space. So I'm really quite excited about what we've come down to do. As I mentioned last month, at the time I took the AD position, I was the 9th athletic director in 4 years. So I was aware that West needed some stability and someone to help sort out those issues. And yes, there are some issues over there, but issues have solutions. So in all of my equity work over these years, the best advice that I've been given is to come every day with some fresh eyes to see through a lens that doesn't have preset filters. So after my 2 years, I learned a lot about West community that I had not heard about, different from the larger perceptions that are held from many. So the biggest one is really dealing with a lack of space. I found it causes a lot of tension between athletics, coaches, the custodians, facility staff, families, school staff, and MSCR. But really more importantly is that lack of space means that we miss opportunities for the students in the community. Few athletic spaces at West, and we have almost less than half are at West that actually participate on site. Most of them are off site in isolated training and game sites. It just really creates a lot of obstacles and barriers for West students to participate. And I'm not talking about all students, because we have, and we all know it, many students and families that are resourceful and easily scale the obstacles. But unfortunately, that can't hide the issues to the casual eye. So we focus on what we can see. We tend to see the tip of the iceberg and not what lies below. And this is something we need to address, is what this incremental space, these 3 lanes of pool, the suspended track and the fitness room does, is really addresses that. Otherwise, we really just exacerbate the opportunity gaps for under-resourced students who often have fewer resources to navigate their way through these obstacles of practice times, transportations, locations, and even things just not being offered. They miss out on all those benefits of athletics and fitness, team community, when activities can't be on site or after school or can't even be offered at all. So this is the moment. This is when we will have the only opportunity to not only build some athletic facilities to meet some of the space demands of our 2,300 students in the greater community, but to look how we can creatively take advantage of this one build of a lifetime to best serve our community, since this building is using the last of the available land. Our community at West is really excited the possibility to have this additional space that can be used for large group and movement activities and gives us enormous value. I, along with others, took the time to research myself, because I really wanted it done right. And the best way to be creative and innovative in a space, since we only have so much. And so I traveled around Wisconsin and Minnesota and to look at facilities and build outs. And the most common themes, whether they're from inner city schools or they were suburban areas that are just massive, like D3 colleges, were suspended tracks, cross-course pools, and multi-purpose spaces. The incredible return of investment on what such an incremental expense was pushed by each school's AD I visited with. Not only does it open more opportunities for recreational sports, but it cuts down on rental fees and transportation costs for swim and track. It pulls dance, cheer, events, and other gatherings off the courts, like the other 3 high schools already have with their dance rooms, to open up courts for recreational sports activities and MSCR leagues and non-leagues that will better serve our diverse community. It will offer safe space for special needs students and physical therapy students to move around instead of the busy, overcrowded hallways it currently uses. PE students will have more swimming classes and fitness classes and walking space. Even the staff will benefit from using the track during the day. With MSCR leaving the neighborhood due to the transition of Hoyt to Capitol High, West needs to play a greater role as the anchor of our community, and adding on additional space, even the small amount proposed this evening, including expanding the pool by just 3 lanes, will add value and return of investment to both our West students and the community. So to share a little bit more of a personal in-depth information on what public doesn't always see is I'm going to hand it over to Corvon Gaines, who is a West alum, a basketball coach, and the coordinator of student engagement.
Thank you again, Alicia. And thanks everyone for being here today and taking the time to listen to our proposal. Like she stated, my name is Corvon Gaines. I'm a 2008 graduate from Madison West. I've been a part of the Region family since 1995, starting with my siblings. So West is definitely near and dear to my heart. Being a former student athlete and now working in the building as a staff member and coach, I see the bigger picture of what our students are facing on a daily basis. I'm constantly reminding our students that we know we don't have enough space to practice, but that is something that's out of our control. And you know what? We only can control what we can. So as regents, we are forced to have that resilient mindset to always push forward no matter what. But that means I'm telling my students that they need to work 10 times harder than a student at another high school just to get the same practice opportunities. And that's not fair. And our students travel to other schools just to practice or compete so they can see and feel the inequities as well due to the lack of space. Most of our freshmen wait hours after practice to start because we don't have enough space for everyone. Since some students don't have the luxury of going home and eating before practice, we are now trying to hold practice for a ton of teenagers who haven't ate since lunch. And we expect them to go out there and be ready to perform, practice, and compete against other schools who have well-spaced areas. With the late practice now, students are now catching the Metro bus, which gets them home between 9:30 and 10:30, and they still have to eat dinner. Then those same students have to wake up at 5 a.m. to get ready to catch the bus at 6:45, which will get them at West at 8 a.m. And then those same exact students who just went through all that, we expect them bright and early in the morning to engage in their academics. This takes a big toll on their overall well-being, mentally, physically. With the added space we're hoping to fundraise, our athletes will have the opportunity for regional gym time, practice space and availability, which will have a direct impact on their well-being. West students who participate in MSCR activities are also met with inequalities due to space. I've seen them walking a great distance in blizzards or freezing cold temperatures to the Hoyt building just to have practice, since West has no extra space for our students who participate in MSCR. This barrier means less students are taking place in those opportunities in other schools. So if we have the space and availability for more practice and activities to take place at West, our students of color would have more opportunities to invest their time in community programs, activities, and be a part of a team to feel some sense of belonging. However, West academic opportunities do not outweigh our need for sufficient space for students to partake in wellness activities. If we are given the opportunity to fundraise for our space, we are promising, we hope to further diversify our student athlete community and continue to meet our student athletes' needs to compete at a high level. So, and this is what I see and hear from our students on an everyday basis at West High School. So I want to pass it to Janet Dyer, another committee member.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. I'm happy to be here to offer continued support for the West High School Capital Campaign and the positive impact it will have on MSCR. I'll be brief. A lot that I wanted to say has already been said, but I do want to just say, as was shared by many others and with the board last month, as well as included in the West Equity Guidance Tool, MSCR has not been able to provide equitable opportunities in recreational sports programming for West High School students in comparison to the other comprehensive high schools. And MSCR access to West High School for community programs such as swimming lessons and sports leagues is very limited. Additional athletic courts would give West students the same opportunities as other MMSD high school students without having to travel for practice. And they would have the opportunity to embrace the pride that comes with hosting athletic events on your home court. MSCR would also be in a better position to serve the West Madison community and the community at large with additional courts for community basketball, volleyball, badminton, and more. And as was mentioned earlier, as the Hoyt building transitions to Capitol High School, thank you to all of our community members who voted for that. I'm very excited for that opportunity for high school students. But MSCR will not have the same level of access to the gym at Hoyt for programs like adult fitness and our very, very popular 50+ Goodman Rotary Fitness programs. So it is with a tremendous amount of excitement that we anticipate providing some of that programming in the proposed fitness studio or bonus space that is proposed, as well as the track. We would definitely be able to not only serve those community members that participate in programming 7 days a week, maybe up to 10 hours a day at Hoyt, if we can pick some of that programming up at West, as well as our new MSCR location on Lakeside Street. I just wanted to say a couple of comments about the pool. While a warm water pool would have gone a long ways in eliminating some of the wait lists that we have for our aquatics programs for individuals with disabilities, for infants, for older adults, for those people with arthritis that need a warm water pool to exercise. It is something that MSCR would support at another time, perhaps on another West Side location. However, the new proposal for the pool upgrade would definitely enable us to reduce some of our wait list for swimming lessons and for some of our community-based swim programs for low-income communities that access the other swimming pools in our high schools. So we're excited about that opportunity as well. And before I turn things back over to Principal Baran, I'd like to thank the board for their consideration. And I also like to thank the West High School team for including MSCR in every step of this process, both now and moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you for this. It's very helpful. Do any other board members have any questions before we take a vote? Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye. Ali?
Aye.
Ali, aye.
Nikki, aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savion?
Aye.
Savion, aye. Crystal Schmidt?
Aye.
Crystal Schmidt, aye. Zananda Swan?
Aye.
Ananda,
I'm here. Aye.
okay, Ananda, aye. Gloria, aye. Motion passes. Let's move on to motion number 3. I move that the board of approve and accept the project proposal from West High School to accept one, accept plans to upgrade the referenda base scope 8-lane pool and diving well to a class course 25 yard by 25 meter pool with an integral diving well above and beyond the investments and commitments provided approved through the 2020 facility referenda proposal. 2, accept through a pre-approval of up to $2.5 million in donations through the Foundation for Medicine's Public Schools no later than September 6, 2021. And the action is taken based on the understanding that West fundraising must meet the fundraising milestone with cash in hand in order for the project to continue by the deadlines noted in the attached presentation materials for the regular meeting dated March 22nd, 2021. Can I get a second?
Second, Ali.
Second, Ali, any discussion? Chris?
So I just want to point out that I think if we approve this, the fundraising approvals for West and Memorial and the investments we made in East are all basically in the same ballpark. And so I'm looking forward to when we can schedule time to talk about how we're going to make similar investments in the La Follette community. And I just want to once again reiterate my gratitude to you, Gloria, and Ali and Dr. Jenkins for reaching out to that community and making sure that we're hearing that community and what they need in their schools, because these investments we're making in all of our high schools are really about the community. They're not just about the school. And we need to invest in all of our communities around the city. So thanks so much for getting that conversation going.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Okay, Julia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Julia, aye. Ali?
Aye.
Ali, aye.
Nikki, aye.
Nikki, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris, aye. Savion?
Aye.
Savion, aye. Crystal Schmidt?
Aye.
Crystal Schmidt, aye. Ananda?
Aye.
Ananda, aye. Gloria, aye. Passes. Motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you for coming tonight. Looking forward to, all of our schools, right? I mean, it's an exciting time. And can I get a move to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Sadie, second. Any further discussion? Okay, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria.
Two more agenda items. No, just kidding.
Stop, and that-
I like board.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Gloria, I should mention that, yes, you can still come to work meetings in April.